Good evening. Welcome to Meet the Judge live on Facebook and YouTube. Tonight, my guest is Eddie Patterson from the north of Ireland, and most people will not need an introduction to Eddie. Along with Gail, his partner, they are probably the most successful exhibitors, breeders of Rhodesian Ridgebacks in Ireland. Eddie and Gail have bred many Irish champions, UK champions, and international champions. Eddie is also president of Newtonards and District Canine Association, and is involved also with the Irish Kennel Club and a member of the governing body of the Irish Kennel Club. Good evening, Eddie. Before we start tonight, chatting with you tonight, it would be remiss of me not to mention the sad passing of one of Ireland's legends in dogs, Betty Murphy. Most people who knew Betty would know that she was the mother of Irish wolfhounds, very involved with Irish breeds for many years. And indeed, if I recollect correctly, she had a massive archive of Irish wolfhound memorabilia, which she actually donated to the archives here in Ireland. She'd be very missed by a lot of particularly hound people, but not just hound people. She will be missed by most people in Irish dogs. And our thoughts go to her family and her friends at this time. Eddie, you knew Betty well.
Yeah, Colin.
What would you say was her mark on Irish dogs?
Well, first, can I just say hello to everybody that's watching? In regard to Betty, I had known Betty for many, many years, and along with going back in the Hound Club with Wendy Jackson and others. It was such sad news yesterday to hear of her passing. Betty was just one of those true hound persons, and not just a dog person, but a true hound person with that passion for Irish wolfhounds, and always in the background, and always to the fore when it came to protecting the breed and looking after the interests of the breed. Always met you with a smile, always had a kind word. Just one of those people that I have to say, in all my 35 years of knowing her, never heard us speak ill of anybody. And how many can say that within the dog world, and just a lovely person. And when you seen Betty, you always had Jim Bean.
Yes.
And, they were two of them were like a fixture around the Hound Club. And, they were just there, as I say, in recent years there with Nicky Parker and Carol Briscoe. She was always found in the secretary's tent there, helping out at the hound shows and doing that job. And many people, new people coming into hounds especially, and when they went along to that show, they'd have just seen this lady sitting in the tent and wouldn't have a clue who she was, and handing out the numbers or whatever at the secretary's office. And Betty was the type, she didn't need to be known. People who knew of her importance, that was all that we took, and that's and Betty knew that they were the people there that had that respect for and for both their love of the dogs and their knowledge of hounds. So yes, a sad passing.
She was particularly passionate about wolfhounds, though, wasn't she? I mean, she was a legend in wolfhound circles.
Total legend in wolfhounds. I know we've got others like Tim and Marion Finney, and going back, and even before that, John Kelly. Yeah, Kathleen's still there. But these were all the people when we started back in in the sort of early mid 80s. They were there and came right the way through. And as I say, they were old school, as I call them. If you wanted to, when you were starting out and you wanted to go and talk to people about dogs and learn, they were the people you sat and talked to and learned from. And maybe I'm encroaching on one or two of your questions later on, but they were the ones. And Betty was a wealth of knowledge with Irish wolfhounds, and
absolutely.
And we're lucky we have others in Ireland like that, but she will be an immense loss to the Irish wolfhound fraternity in Ireland and worldwide. I mean, some of the comments I've seen on messages that we've put up from around Europe and around the world about Betty.
Yes.
She was well known without being well known, if you know what I mean. And so, as I say, such a sad passing.
And I was trying to get clarification earlier today, but I haven't been able to. Was she a member of the board of directors?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know why.
Sorry, I was going to say if she was, she certainly didn't make it known because, as I say, going back to what I said before, Betty just wasn't that type of person. She was there and she helped and she worked hard especially for the Hound Association and the World Hound Clubs. So, as I say, God bless her and rest her. And as I say, it's just another person within the world of dogs now gone.
And sadly, over the last year or so, we've lost quite a few.
We have lost a few, and another last week, Jackie McCallion.
Yes, I did notice it.
Jackie, if you're around the terrier ring, you're always seeing Jackie at the shows with Harry Quigg and his wife Alina, and they brought Harry. They brought Jackie to the shows. Again, a gentleman there a terrier man, where Betty was a true hound person. Jackie was a true terrier man. Always had the flat cap on. You always have seen him around the rings there. And we had so much fun and jokes and laughs with Jackie, along with Harry and Alina. And as he always said, he was the kennel boy for Harry. It was always fun and laughter. And sadly, he passed away last week at the age of 97. So. And he was involved in Welsh Terriers and Kerry Blues for many, many years. And again, another sad loss to the dog world in Ireland.
Yeah, sadly. So how have you been coping through this whole pandemic, Eddie?
Oh, we're just like everyone else. We just had to get on with it and lock ourselves away there at the early days and the lockdowns. And now with all the vaccines getting opened up, we're slowly getting back. We were lucky in a way that our wee bubble was 6 people. There was Jim and Debbie Irvine and Ronnie and Jeanette Kirk and Gail and myself. And we started off this time last year with Zoom calls on a Saturday night that would have went from maybe 7 at night to maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes it was hard to know how we actually worked the computer when we were heading to bed, But we had quiz nights and this sort of thing. But we had to give the quiz nights up because Jim Irvine was coming up with some really stupid, obscure questions. Nobody, mastermind guys, wouldn't even know them. But as they had great fun and laugh. And then we progressed a wee bit further of meeting outdoors over the summer and that's continued on. And they have really kept Gail and myself sane because we live out in the country. Gail's back to work at the school, but that kept us sane. Now that we're opening up a wee bit, we took pulled by the horns about 5-6 weeks ago, and we decided to open up the training classes back at Newton Ards at the rugby club. And if I can say a big thank you to Ards Rugby Club and Stevie Nutt, the coordinator there, the amount of help and support they've given us to get going, a massive amount of paperwork involved with COVID and all that. So we've done it. We started off, I think the first week there were 16 at it. Today we had 54 people there.
Wow.
We've got a great system. It's the people are getting a lot for very little money, and most of it's going to charity. At the end of the day, the club's not making out of it, and we're trying to slowly get back. And I have to say, 99.9% of the time, people are doing what they're told, and not what they're told, what they're asked, and they are conforming with this, wearing their masks, staying off in the particular areas, the COVID regulations, bringing their forms, all that sort of stuff that makes it easier for us to run the event. But it's been very well supported and received. And I think we're the only club in the north that's doing it. So, hopefully more.
Are you slightly worried about this minor little spike you're having in the north of Ireland with the Delta?
It'll be there, and I think we'll have those wee minor spikes for years to come. I think it's something we just have to learn to deal with. The medical experts are there, and as long as we listen to them, and as I say, we have 54 people there today. If something happens and the medical people put something out that we have to go back a step, well, then if it's back a step that we only have 20 people there for a few weeks till we allow to open up. But hopefully things will keep progressing. I think they're talking by the autumn when we go for our flu jobs, we'll be getting a cocktail which will include extra for the COVID. So let's see. Let's be positive about it and try and get out there and do a wee bit more of on a positive note, as opposed
and
to.
And in terms of, have you any hopes that we are going to have dog shows on this island when there are dog shows being held in the UK? I mean, we know Southern Counties is going on this weekend. We see dog shows on Facebook all over the world. Have you any hope that we might have some in this country?
We can only hope, even if it's at a small level. Should it be a breed show, a limit stroke open type shows? I certainly can't see any all breed championship shows and this year. But I see no reason why we can't have championship breed shows, single breed shows, or even two breeds at the one venue if it's big enough.
Absolutely.
That sort of thing, outdoors, and adhere to the regulations, etc., and go forward. I mean, we're running that training class, and with the amount of people at it, there's some breed clubs wouldn't even get that number. So why not try?
Most breed clubs, in actual fact, in this country.
Yeah. Hopefully by the end of the summer, if we can get things going and get the support for it, we're looking at possibly applying for a limit stroke open show. Run it on the basis of a limit show, but because you can't enter on the day, etc., because of the COVID forms and that, do your entries like an open show, but run it like a limit show with the classes, the AV classes and this, and limit the numbers to give us some insight on how to go forward. And if we have to make mistakes, let's make them at a small event like that as opposed to a big show. And then maybe some governing body coming in, government or something, and saying, you shouldn't be doing all this. A small event that's easy handled, that will go under the radar nearly. But yet we can do the reports, the risk assessments and that sort of thing beforehand when you're doing your application. And then an after show report to allow the Kennel Club to make some sort of a dossier there that can be accessed by clubs for next year going forward to big shows, to let them see maybe the pitfalls and this sort of thing, So I think we have to be positive and try and go forward. And hopefully the Kennel Club will support us doing that. And there are people out there like myself and that are quite willing to come on board with clubs there to help them.
Absolutely.
And if we can be of any help to them, and even though it's geographically a matter of them moving their shows from traditionally held maybe in the south of Ireland to the north or whatever it is, let's try and look at it because we are going to have a major change in getting back. Dog shows will not be the same when we come back next year.
No, they won't. So a lot of your fan club are watching tonight. We have Tracy Douglas, Ruth Byers is watching. Morag and David Connolly watching. Susan White is watching. Jimmy Burns. So you've Laura from Finland is watching. So you've quite a few people.
Hello, Laura.
So we're going to kick off now to in terms of you starting off in dogs, right back to the beginning. Did you have dogs growing up? Were your parents involved?
We had nobody in the family in the family that were actually in the dog show world. Always had dogs about the house growing up as a child. Like my parents always had small house dogs, Cocker Spaniels, Cairn Terrier, Westies. My grandfather was a real countryman, but he worked in the shipyard in Harlan Wolff as an engineer. And as many people within the shipyard, a lot of the homing pigeon fraternity within the shipyard, and I gained a lot of knowledge from my grandfather on the likes of breeding. Now he also had dogs. In the early days after the war, he had a blue Great Dane, and from what he told me, it was the first ever blue Great Dane imported into Ireland. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but certainly in the Northern Ireland, but whether in the Ireland, it was the first blue. And he had that, and he had some Bernards as well, all pets. And then as a countryman, he always would have had the odd Spaniel and Terrier about the place. And the Terriers were always about the place because with the pigeon shades and the vermin you got about there. So they're always about. But I learned an awful lot from him. And it benefited me when I got into dogs because when it came about the breeding, like these guys going back, like probably our old dog breeders, it was all pen and ink, writing pedigrees, writing stud books, and this sort of thing,
Yes.
breeding books. And this is what my grandfather had the same. And I was able to study a lot of stuff that he had sort of written down. And it looked like a dog's pedigree when you looked at a pedigree for a racing pigeon. And so that was a bit of a benefit to me. And that's where I got a lot of my knowledge on breeding and that there, when it came into the dog world. But it was many years after we got married and whatever that we actually got into the show dog world. But and I say going on when we were
what drew you into it?
Into the show world?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was all purely by accident. And maybe a lot of people wouldn't know and probably won't believe me when they see the size of me now. But when we were first married, we wanted a wee dog for the house. And we got, believe it or not, a miniature long-haired dachshund.
Okay.
And we got Rudy, purely as a pet, from a lady off Willowfield Street in Belfast. And she was heavily involved in the Dachshund Club, the Ulster Dachshund Club. And she wanted us to come along. We went to a few matches, and we actually went to one of only 2 shows at that stage in our dog history, up in Larne at the old leisure centre in Larne, and we won Best Puppy in Show. Total novices, hadn't a clue what we're doing, and you had people at that stage like Bill and Jerry were there at those early days.
Right.
And Jerry still looks as young now as he did then. But
you're not wrong though.
Oh, and he still runs around with the top off as well, and still looks the same.
I mean, I grew up knowing Jerry because my Esther, obviously my mother, was in Dachshunds, and he doesn't change. I think he's probably got a painting in the attic somewhere.
No, well, I tell you what, either that he's got a great plastic surgeon, I don't know, but lovely guy. We've been friends for many, many years. I have to be nice to him because he actually does the books for Newton Arts for us for the
okay.
But Bill, a genius in breeding,
Yes, absolutely.
Jerry's a genius when it comes to breeding with dachshunds,
Yeah,
so. But there was Joe Patterson and Lillian and John Wright. There was these people in 1980 and then I was actually doing the athletics at the time, and this is where I say a lot of people probably won't believe me. And as I said, when I done athletics at an international level, it wasn't in the shot put or the hammer or that. It was a middle distance runner, and I ran at a fairly high level. And in those days it was the likes of Eamon Coughlin and John Tracy and the boys. And but anyway, as I said, through ill health in the mid-80s, I had to give up the running. I mean, I went from running nearly 100 miles a week to I couldn't run a bath. That's why I have a shower in the house now. But that was the decline of the athletics. So
okay.
And I jumped from 9 stone soaking wet till about 15, 16 stone because of the amount of drugs I was on, because of my health. And I thought, I'm going to have to do something to get out, exercise. Give me a reason to get up off my backside at night and go out and exercise. So we started looking around for a dog. And we looked at the usual, your Dobermans, German Shepherds, Labradors. And we were just contemplating what we were going to get. And it was just by chance one day I happened to be in Belfast. And this guy walking up the road with this red dog. And I just stopped and looked, as many people do when they see Ridgebacks for the first time. I just stopped and looked, and I thought, that's the dog for me. And I went, I actually crossed the main Ormer Road like a buck agent and stopped this guy. And, bottom of the Ormer Road, those sort of days in the mid-80s, it's sort of when somebody ran up and approached you. And the guy sort of, what do you want? What do you want? And I said, I want to ask you about your dog. Well, I think it was about an hour later we parted company and I knew all about Ridgebacks. And it was about 18 months later, I kept looking for Ridgeback litters. And in those days, the only place you seen litters advertised were in the Belfast Telegraph. And lo and behold, in 1988, this litter appeared and I made the phone call. And I came home from work and I said to Gail, we're going to Navan on Sunday morning. Now, I hadn't a clue where Navan was, how long it would take me. And we had two youngsters of 2 and 4 year old. And we hadn't a clue. And there was, of course, no sat navs.
No sat nav.
So we got the map. We got the directions, and away we went. And it wasn't even just in Navan, it was in the middle of nowhere outside Navan. And it was a lady, Linda McElhinney. She was a horsey woman, and she had this litter. And got me down there to buy a dog. I wanted a meal. So we went down, probably took us 4 hours or more. Got away down, found where she lived, and lo and behold, there was only 3 bitches left. And I sort of, well, we're down here for a meal. Oh, no, there was only females. So, okay, we came all this way. The kids were playing with the dogs, and they took the smallest one. It was literally what we would know as the runt of the litter.
Yes.
And this was Sheena, our first one, Melrose Sharif dancer. And we got Sheena, and she actually gave us her half price with papers, but half price because she was the smallest in the litter. And it was 90 punts, which I would love to get a Ridgeback for 90 punts nowadays.
Yes.
But so that got us into it. And the club had just started. The Ridgeback Club of Ireland had just started. A lady, Molly O'Driscoll, who lived in Navan at the time. She now is living back up here in Bangor. But Molly was a stalwart of the club and big interest in Ridgebacks. Her brother lived in South Africa. Her and her husband Jack went out there every October, maybe spent a month there. And they got made a lot of friendships with Ridgeback people in South Africa. So, as I say, Molly took us under her wing, and they had their first club show. I think it was held at Swords in '88, and we went along. The club had their club show. As you know, in those days, I think there was only one set of green stars for us. But in those days, when you didn't have your own green stars, you used whatever host club it was. So I think we used Swords. I think it was Swords or Drogheda. It was one or the other. We used their green stars, and we had a club show. And I got best puppy in show. And there was about 6 or 7 puppies.
Okay.
You know, so that got the bug, and being very competitive with the athletics, and that started the bug. Oh, it's something to do on the Saturday there, and a wee bit of competition. So
how long did it then take you to start achieving best of breed wins or making up your first champion?
Well, there wasn't a massive amount of Ridgebacks at the time. We might have had, well, maybe no different than what we have now. You know, we might have been at an average show, you might have had 8 or 9 Ridgebacks. And as I say, and G. McClancy was there at the time with her boy. And so as I say, we were all starting off new as a new club. And of course, back then, of course, we had the old point system. Yes.
And also the fact that you had to have a number of dogs and a number of bitches to get 2 green stars. So more than likely, you probably only had 1 green star on offer, did you?
Yeah, well, that was some shows we had 2. Most shows we had 1. As I say, we got Sheena in '88, and we started the puppy classes. There was no junior champions or anything in those days, so we won a few bits and pieces. The odd reserve green star, and it was 91 before we got Sheena made up to a champion. And by that stage, you know, which you say with the point system, that was an achievement in a minority breed. And you know, and I was actually looking at it when I was doing a wee bit of research for you tonight. I was looking at a lot of our old certificates and that with Sheena and Gypsy and co. And when I looked down, a lot of our major wins were St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. Those sort of shows, you know, and because they were the shows where you got your guaranteed majors, as you remember. Yes. And you always had 2 green stars. Every breed would have had 2 green stars at the St. Patrick's Day shows. So that's why it probably took a few years to get it. But you felt as if you'd done something because you had to get that 40 points or be annual champion 3 years in a row.
And you know, Susan White is just asking, do you prefer that system to the current one?
It has its benefits. Both have their benefits if the system, and it's whatever system you have, Colin, if they're used correctly and the judging procedures are done correctly, then they both can work. The old system had, yes, it was a lot harder to make up a dog because of the points. But you know yourself, when somebody got to a certain stage and they maybe were only looking one major, that's when the skullduggery came in. And
Yes,
you might have had 5 dogs, 6 dogs during the day, but when it actually came to going into the ring, there was maybe only 4 there.
Yes,
And that was the problem.
And the other issue was that in some breeds, particularly in coated breeds, the all the cut downs were brought out.
Yes, but I tell you funny on that.
Both have their flaws. I don't think there is a perfect system.
No, but as I said, if whatever system it is, and whatever awards you have for them judging, if they're implemented properly,
yes,
then they'll work. Unfortunately,
absolutely,
there's not the perfect system, and it's not always that they're implemented right. But we just have to get on and make do with it. Like I always said, if somebody done that and you didn't get your major today, if the dog's good enough, you'll get it next week or the week after, because they can't continually keep their dogs out of the ring.
Yeah.
I'll tell you funny, just before we go on that, you're saying about all the cut downs and that. There was good friends of ours in the sort of early 90s, mid 90s, when the old system was on, and a young lady had a miniature poodle, and she was a great junior handler and whatever, but she had this beautiful miniature poodle, and she kept bringing it out. She needed one major, and the blocks were put up so she wouldn't get the major, and the people that had mentored her and had helped her brought out all the cutbacks, the veterans, etc., and to get her major. And I remember going in that day, and if they're listening, they'll kill me. I took one in that was nearly blind, one eye, cut back deaf, and I think it was about 13 or 14-year-old, but it still counted as a point.
Yes.
Now the dog, after it got its champion title, all the dogs came back out again, of course, but this dog went on to win and win and win. So they were only holding it back.
Yeah.
The dog, but that was a funny just. Anyway, you take it. It's the one and only time I've ever been in the ring with a poodle, and it happened to be one that was half blind and next to no coat on it. But that's my experience.
Well, I can tell you also that Rita, and I'm not going to name the breed because I'll be killed, just like you would be. Took in handled a dog for somebody who was making up points for this dog that was waiting on one major. It was a champion she was handling, but it had lost an eye.
Right.
And it won. It was a beautiful dog, but even with one eye, it won over the one that she was chasing it. I mean, those are anecdotal stories. That's what happened back then. Now, you mentioned some of the people earlier that were instrumental in your career, but the people that really influenced you in the early days.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky that I came into the company of a true hound countryman when I first started, because he had a major interest in Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Never owned them, but had judged them all around the world. And that was Tommy Agnew.
Oh, Tommy, yeah. I loved Tommy.
Tommy, a character, and that's what you could say, a great dog man, but more so a great character.
Yeah.
But Tommy loved Rhodesian Ridgebacks, and he travelled the world, and I think at that stage, I think he had judged in nearly every FCI country that was listed in those days, the FCI, and had judged Ridgebacks in Rhodesia and in South Africa and Australia and wherever. And actually, when he passed, the Viv Coulter was helping clear the house out and came across this box of the wee lapel badges. Mm. And there was a range of them of Ridgebacks and Basages from South Africa, Zimbabwe, different countries in Africa. And I was able to get them all, and I still have them here. But Tommy, as a countryman, he grew up off the Rathgale Road there in Bangor, and there's a big country estate down there. And as Tommy said, he went out with the lurchers and and whatever to bring something home at night for the pot. So that's the way Tommy grew up, and that was his knowledge of dogs. Now, I know he went on and he started off attacking off Borzois, and he had great success for those, and great stories of traveling to England, on the boat and then the train with these Borzois, or he used to share a car with an old lady, an old vintage car, and they would have travelled off down and, wondered would they ever get the Earl's Court or whatever. But great stories like that, but a wealth of knowledge that we've lost, and I think it's unfortunate. They were
I think also, Tommy, sorry, cut across again, but he was, I think Tommy got a bad rep actually in this country because, he was all of the things you say, but he was also quite progressive. I mean, I know for a fact he was probably one of the first people to give an American Cocker a gun dog group, which, what was frowned upon back in the 80s because, it within gun dog circles, stay wearing gun dogs, but, no matter what you said. But he was very progressive.
Yes, but this is again where I've learned and have an open mind when you go in to judge. And I learned that from Tommy. And, when I done the first show, it was an all-breed open show up in the north here. And when I done it, I said to Tommy beforehand, because, I'd never done anything like this before, very apprehensive, as I still am when I go to any show. I'm still, the nerves are still there and apprehensive. And I think many say, if you lose that, you're too blasé, give up judging because you're not doing your job right. But as I say, so I'd say the advice I got from Tommy for that first show was that I just go in, judge the dogs, don't worry about who's holding the lead, just judge the dogs, put them up, and if anybody asks you why you put that dog up, just say, I liked it. Yeah. And what else can you say when, no matter how senior level you get at judging or warrior judging or how big a show it is? The only thing you can honestly hand and heart say when you put a dog up is, I liked it. Because that's what it's about. So there was Tommy, and as I learned, my foundation knowledge on judging dogs really was from Tommy. But there was a couple of other people there, that Phil McGarry-Arthurs, of the Fairburn Bassets. Again, I learned so much from Phil about Bassets. And we used to travel the country actually going to beagle shows, foxhound shows. Many years in a row, we went to the National Foxhound at Stradbally. And just to sit another aspect of dogs, of hounds.
Yes.
And when you see those, they might have lumps out of them and this sort of thing, but they're true hounds. They're not running around 4 bits of tape. These dogs are true hounds. And again, you learn so much. And I can remember Phil and myself asking, because when we started going to these shows at Stradbally and that, the dogs we would have picked, the fancy dogs, never won. So we plucked up the courage to go and ask one of the judges, who were top, like hound men, kennel men, why did you put that dog up and not the dogs? And they would have stood all day and told you. But they were looking for working dogs.
Yes.
Dogs that could do their job. Not something that's been primed up and put in fancy to run around a ring. And the dogs went into the ring without leads on them. You could have had 4 or 5 hounds all working to the biscuit, and fantastic. So we learned so much. But Phil introduced me to that, and a lot of kennels up here, foxhound kennels. And again, I'm indebted to him because that gave me another wealth of knowledge of listening to, sort of hound men and old hound men to what to do. So I've tried to incorporate that into all my aspects of judging, no matter what the breed, and it's a case of, first thing you do is, you look at what the dog was bred for, and then you try and work it from that. So I'm indebted to them, and getting me started and giving me a foundation of getting into judging. As far as Ridgebacks are concerned, when we started back, there was 3 or 4 people there, that I got to know very, very well. And again, their hierarchy within the Ridgeback fraternity in the UK. Anne Woodrow, Marengo, Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Anne is just, they call her Queen Anne. And she is the queen of Ridgebacks. Her wealth, knowledge, or whatever, fantastic. She's a horse breeder and a trainer for racehorses, hunting racehorses. Actually, her husband was he was the head treasurer accountant for Royal Ascot, so that was the
Okay.
circle he moved in. But such a wealth of knowledge there within Ridgebacks. And I got very close with Diane, and she gave me a good grounding within them. She doesn't always agree with what I do nowadays, as she says, these all-round judges tend to forget a wee bit about their own breed, but we agree to disagree on that.
Yes.
And then there was also worldwide famous people, Jack and Eileen Selby of the ELAC Kennels, and their daughter Pat. Sadly, they're all now sort of departed. Jack was just, and he had judged in Ireland 2 or 3 times. Again, he was probably one of the main people who, from the 50s, when he formed the ELAC Kennels, brought dogs in and out from South Africa and Rhodesia. And he brought dogs in to use at stud, and then some of them might have went back to their former kennels. And that brought bloodlines in when we badly needed them in the breed, because I think going through the 60s, we had major problems in the breed with hips and different odds and ends, with breed. Because, I mean, Ridgebacks are a new breed. I mean, the standard was only wrote down in sort of 22, 23, that in around that era, the early 20s. So, and Ridgebacks are a formulation of many, many different breeds in South Africa, to get this dog. So, as I say, Jack done a massive amount of work within the world of Ridgebacks in the UK, and I was very, very lucky to fall under his wing as well. And in later years, then when Pat took over, when Jack passed, or he was getting to that age, his daughter Pat took over, and she had the same grounding as her father Jack, and her mother Eileen. Eileen was the brains really behind the breeding, but sadly, she passed away in the early 90s. So, as I say, it was left to Pat then to take up the reins. And they done that. And again, as I say, I always think everything's wrote down in a big book for us and it's fate. And I was just meant to meet these people. And in a way, when you approach them the right way and you respect them the right way, and you're humble to them, something that's not really commonly seen anymore in the world of dogs. But when you've done that, and that's to say, Colin, if you sit and listen to these people, this is where you can benefit from it.
Absolutely.
And I was lucky. I mean, there was other people in Ridgebacks, great breeders: Peter Nicholson, Janet Parker, Betty Webster, Julie Bates, David Seaman. All people that I knew within the Ridgebacks from going across. And as I say now, when we did go across in the 90s, mostly in the early noughties, I knew sort of 90% of the people in Ridgebacks. Now if I go across, I'm lucky if I know sort of 5% of them. It's all newbies and I haven't a clue. And sadly, we've lost some of the old folk, but and sadly many of them didn't put anything in print.
Yes.
I always thought if more and more went into print, we could maybe learn from it, but. And I say
there's a job for you, Eddie.
No. They're just being non-seller. I'll put your name on it to maybe go further. But sorry, I want to mention two other people who were instrumental in me going forward in the world of dogs, and they're very important, very close to me and Gail. One of them was Joe and Burl Hearn, with the Labradors, Ballyhenry Labradors. Again, I learned so much about Labradors from the two of them. Even before I was judging gun dogs or anything, and you would know them well, Colin. Lovely people, and again, worked their dogs. They weren't just show dogs; they were field trial dogs as well. The other person is Joe Kirk. Joe especially. Joe took me under his wing when we started with Newton Ards Club with the Irish Kennel Club back in the early 2000s, and really Gail and myself came into the fore with Newton Ards in 2001, the year of the foot and mouth. And for certain reasons, the whole format within Newton Ards changed, and all the committee changed, people that run the club changed for reasons I'm not going into, but they did, and it was either let the club go, and we were going forward. Obviously, with Irish Kennel Club, Bangor had just joined, and we were next on the line to join. So we got involved, and I knew, like, as you know, Joe Kirk, many years involved with both English Kennel Club and Irish Kennel Club.
Yes.
And again, a massive knowledge on who to speak to, but how to speak to them and how to approach people. And that's Joe, again, took me under the wing as far as that side of the dog world was concerned. And he guided me through getting Newton Ards up and running under the Irish Kennel Club and how to go forward. And really, Newton Ards Club is in total debt to Joe Kirk, because
he was a great mentor to a lot of people, north and south. And it was 32 counties. He was a huge mentor to a lot of people in this country.
Yeah,
and we've lost people like that.
Yeah, especially in the north. You know, the clubs in the north are that.
Yeah.
You know, I say I can only really speak for Newton Ards, but without him and his knowledge and guiding us, because I hadn't a clue who anybody within the Irish Kennel Club was. We knew who people were, but we didn't know sort of the positions they held or how you approached them and this sort of thing.
Yes.
And when you got to know that, it was so easy to approach them if you done it in the right way. But Joe opened the door for us within the Newton Ards Club. And to do that, and well, you know, our success has spoke for itself. So, as I say, we've done all right under his guidance. So, and I always think he's looking down on us, keeping us right.
Now, I know yourself and Gail also show Basenjis, but Ridgebacks really are your passion. Give us the essence of the Rhodesian Ridgeback as you see it.
As it was said to me, and I can't agree. Actually, I can't disagree with it. I was told this by a lady many years ago. A Rhodesian Ridgeback is just a plain, ordinary dog. There's nothing fancy about a Ridgeback. It's a plain, honest type, ordinary dog. It's got a head, a tail, a body, and 4 legs. Just happens to have a ridge up its back. And if it didn't have a ridge up its back, there wouldn't be anything really unique about it apart from that. It doesn't have fancy coats or fancy carried ears or this type of thing, like a lot of other breeds have. But, you know, it would fall under the essence nearly of your Labrador and this type of dogs. But when it comes to the actual character of a Ridgeback, they're probably one of the most intelligent breeds you'll get.
Really?
People say they're hard to train and you can't train them for certain things. You can. But the problem is they're so intelligent. When you train a Ridgeback, it'll then get to the stage where it knows what you want it to do. And an example is if you throw a ball for it, it'll bring the ball back 4 or 5 times. And then you'll throw it the 6th time. And it'll just leave it and look at you.
Yeah.
But to me, the Ridgeback's thinking, he keeps throwing the ball away. I keep bringing it back. He keeps throwing the ball away. So obviously he doesn't want the ball. So I'm not bringing it back to him because he keeps throwing it away. And this is the way Ridgebacks think. And you know, when they were using them in South Africa and Rhodesia for hunting, and the myth is about they hunted lions. They actually didn't hunt lions and kill lions. I mean, if you've been lucky enough to be out in South Africa, and we've been a few times to the Kruger Park, and you see the size of lions in the wild, Ridgebacks, no matter how, and I know we have, especially throughout some countries, we have big Ridgebacks, but they would never do that. But what they were used for was for flushing, nearly like some gun dogs. Okay. And then when they flushed, they would stay in the area, run around the prey, and until the hunter came in with the rifle. And you know, they had to be agile, they had to be intelligent to stay out of the way of the, you know, the claws of the lion or the wild boar or whatever it was. They had to be real athletes, really intelligent, to second guess what the prey was going to be doing so they could get out of the way. Otherwise, they would end up in the pot. So, as I say, that's what Ridgebacks are about. They are the most beautiful breed to live with. You know, they are so undemanding. As long as you let them have the chair. But as long as they have
fixated on their owners.
Sorry?
Are they fixated on their owners? Are they
yes.
one family dogs?
even more so than that, Colin, they're very much, as all hound packs, there's a hierarchy in a pack. And you have the boss and then that goes down the ladder. And because of the size of Ridgebacks, we try to keep them. They're on the lower form of the ladder, because you've got a 40, 50 kilo dog for the muscle. You have to control them right. And we control them with the voice. We don't need to do anything else, because we've trained them from puppies to be like this. And they're quite happy. They know their place. They are quite happy. It's like me and Gail. I know my place. So I'm but no, as I say, if I'm here, the dogs are my dogs. And if I speak, the dogs will react to me, even when Gail's here. Now, if I'm not here, Gail's the boss, and they know that, and they'll do for Gail. Yes. If the two of us are away, and my daughter Nicola, and I have to say hello, Nicola, I know you're watching, and I promised I would mention you. You're a wonderful daughter, and I couldn't do without you. Although Simon, my son, he's no matter. But Nicola would come down and look after the place when we're away, and she's third in the line. And when she speaks, they do what they're told. They're that type of breed. They know their place, but they work it out. Who's the boss? And I'll take my orders from that person, no matter who else is there. Okay. Until that person's not there, and it's amazing to watch them, the way they can work this out, And but as I say, as far as a breed's concerned, I can't disagree with that lady told me many years. They're just a plain ordinary dog. And, for many years, that's why in the hound groups, when it was the full hound groups,
yes,
you were lucky if you made a cut of maybe half the group, because they didn't jump out like the Afghan or the Whippet or, the Wolf, the flashy breeds that it's in your face because of the presentation. You had this plain ordinary dog standing in the background, and... it's just to say now in recent years, I have to give them all over the world, whether it's because of better breeding, better dogs or whatever, or maybe more knowledge of the breed, more and more judges are putting them up, thankfully, and rightly so.
But do you think that's because over recent years, since we joined FCI in particular, we've brought in more international judges into this country?
That's helped, and it's helped immensely. And but not only just bringing the judges in, bringing in a lot of other breeds that would never have been seen here.
Yes. And
that has broadened, the views of local judges, our own judges who maybe haven't got away a lot, and haven't had the privilege of going away a lot to see dogs in their own countries, native breeds and things. It's like when judges come here and have never seen a Kerry Beagle.
Yeah.
One of the nicest hound breeds. Fantastic hound breeds you'll ever get anywhere in the world. Yeah. A novice type dog again, but again, a plain ordinary hound type dog. But to the hound person, this is
not only to the hound person. I find Kerry Beagles when they're I judged one a couple of years ago here, and it was stunning.
Yes, and I probably know the dog you mean, but and as I say, why that dog hasn't won a group yet, I don't know. And I've actually said many times, I would be privileged to stand behind that dog because it's such an outstanding dog. So, but that has helped. And as I say, bringing other judges and that in has, maybe it's give people, maybe local judges, the confidence to put up breeds that they maybe don't know a lot about, and that sort of only comes with gaining that confidence and experience from others and learning from them. So yes. We've been lucky in Ridgebacks, whether it's to say it's because of the judges coming in or whether maybe better breeding or whatever. But they are a breed that they deserve to be up there. And in many countries throughout Europe, most weeks, Ridgebacks win Group 6. It's not just here or whatever. It's in big countries with big entries. It's the Ridgebacks are always in the mix, always in the placings. So.
Yeah, and as a Rhodesian Ridgeback specialist, and for the non-specialist, the double crown, how important is that to the Rhodesian Ridgeback?
Well,
how definite do you as a specialist want that to be? And there is anecdotal stories of it being trimmed into Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Is that true?
You can't. When Ridgebacks are born, in the best time, and again, I learned this from Jack Selby, Jack and Pat. When a Ridgeback is born and it's wet, just out of the mother, you see the ridge and the crowns then.
Really?
And they stand out at that stage. And what they're born with is what they end up with. They don't get worse with growing, getting bigger. They don't get better with growing. If you have, ones with what we call offset crowns, which there's two schools of thought, and I've had discussions with other Ridgeback people, hierarchy and whatever, where the two crowns have to be identical and opposite. Now, the box at the top of the ridge,
yes,
it's what we call the box. It really can be any shape. It can have indents in it or whatever, or it can be nearly straight across, as long as there's some form of the box. It's beautiful to see the fully formed horseshoe, but that's not required. As long as there's no sign of an extra crown or a flick of a crown or anything within that, that's acceptable. What's not acceptable is when the crowns are offset. So you have one up here and one down. So, sorry, this camera is opposite about face, so I don't know what way I'm going.
No, you're right. Yeah.
What I allow, if the bottom of, say, the right-hand crown is opposite the top of the left-hand one, to me, they're still opposite. If there's some sort of connection across, they're still opposite.
Yeah.
Some judges will say, no, they must be directly opposite, but and we're nearly disqualified if they weren't. To me, there's more to a dog than one wee Pacific breed, fault. And you've got to look at the whole picture. But as far as the crowns are concerned, to me, that's important that they just have to be opposite. And again, whether it's the top of one to the bottom of the other, but if there's any gap at all, should it be half a finger's width between, the top of one and the bottom of the other? It's you mark it. It's well, you have to look at the fault and see with the rest of the dog. But it would need to be a very, very good dog for me to give it an excellent dog. Really, for me to overlook that, and I can't really think of any that I have. As far as the ridge is concerned, which is more, probably more, say, a scutcheon of the breed. So really more important is it's the length of the ridge. Some people say the longer the better, but I've seen them nearly going right down to the tip of the tail, or the onset of the tail, and it's not right. When I'm trying to train people or tell people about how to gauge the length, if you bring your two hands up from under the armpits, where they meet at the top, along the top line, is roughly where the start of it would be.
Okay.
When you come up from at the back end, again, come up, underneath the back legs, again, where your hands meet on the top line is roughly, within an inch or a couple of inches of each other. There's no hard and fast. It has to be whatever number of inches or centimeters or whatever. But that's a rough gauge. If it's far away from that, especially short, then it's deemed as like a short ridge. And again, to me, a short ridge is equally as bad as slightly offset crowns. But I have had experience where I've judged a dog. I had a dog in, I think it was Norway. This beautiful junior came in, and when he came in running, I thought 6'7" in the class. I thought, this is easy, my class winner. Beautiful young dog. Until it came in front of me, and it had offset crowns by at least 6 inches. Now that dog should never have been registered by the breeder, really, for showing, because that was never going to change. And I spoke to the young handler afterwards, and it was his first Ridgeback. And I told him, now give him a very good. And I said, listen, I give you a very good because this dog's outstanding apart from its ridge. And really it shouldn't be shown. And he said, well, I got it from the breeder who told me that this would get better as I got older. That doesn't do the Ridgeback fraternity any favors when you're given that sort of advice. And as I said at the start, when they're born, what you see is what you get for the life of the dog.
And how defined do you want that ridge to be? Because there are some times that the ridge is slightly less pronounced.
There is nothing. You don't want it over wide. You don't want a pencil line. when you look at the description, you could argue because there's nothing set down, with an inch tape, what's what, and it's all in preference. But 99% of ridges are okay and acceptable in the right width, right length. You get the odd ones that are short. I have seen one that was nearly to the set on the tail, which I scratched my head and I thought, can you penalise this because there's nothing set down? But in my view, it just didn't. The rest of the dog was okay, but in my view, it just didn't sit right because it was too long. But the short ridge or the offset crowns is probably a bigger fault. And again, we get the very odd percentage. It's a very, very small 0.1 or something of a percentage of ridgebacks are born ridgeless. And it's a funny thing. And as I say, going back, Jack Selby was the one that told me about this, that when you get a ridgeless, you normally end up with an outstanding hound.
Okay.
Probably as good as you'll ever breed.
Yeah.
Something to do with the format, the DNA, the genetics, I don't know. But the old breeders would tell you this is often the case. We had one a few years ago, and it's one of only two we ever had. And this boy, I gave it to a friend of mine as a pet because it was totally ridgeless. And he called it Cronin, and what a beauty. I would put hand on heart and said, probably the best ridgeback I ever bred, but unfortunately it didn't have a ridge.
Jesus.
And I took it, me being naughty. They were Anton was going on holiday with his wife, and he asked me would I keep him, and he was about 18 months old. And I went to keep him for the 2 weeks. And of course, I said, yes, I'll do this for people my dogs that I've bred dogs for. So Cronin came with us, and it was a show at the show centre. And I brought him down with us. And there was one or two ridgeback people, well known, know the breed. And after all the judging was done, we went back to the vans and we were having as we did in those days, had a picnic together and whatever and about that. And I said to them, I said, of this dog, young dog, I've brought in from the continent, I want you to see it. See what you think. So I brought him out and ran him around, and could this dog move? A beauty. And he ran round, and they said to me, why are you not showing this dog? I said, well, we don't know. We'll see. He's just he's in with us. We'll see. I said, no, you should be showing this dog. This dog's a beauty. And I was only one of them. And Twig said, hold on. That dog hasn't got a ridge. So then had to tell them the truth, the real story. But
and would you use that dog if he's so correct in everything else? No. Is that a dog you would use, or is that absolutely not?
Absolutely not, Colin. Two reasons. One, there's enough correct dogs out there in the gene pool and ridgebacks. We're a fairly popular breed now around the world, and there's a massive gene pool. So we don't need to use incorrect dogs. The other side of it is, from the old breeders, if you use a ridgeless dog, where you had one in your litter that came from, you could have 25% in the litter if you use that dog.
Yeah.
And you could have 50% in the following litter. So where there's never been any research done, why would you take the chance? But it's really frowned. I mean, I don't even register them when they come out like that, or if they've got far too much white on them or something. Yes. Something that when they're born, over the first few weeks, if I said, well, that dog will never be bred from and will never be in the show ring, my view is I don't register them because I would keep the paperwork, so it takes away from any afterthoughts. Well, maybe I will use it, or knowing that you shouldn't, so it takes that away. Yeah. So, but as I say, there's enough correct dogs out there.
Yes.
And we are a healthy breed, and we are a strong breed, quality wise around the world. So, and we've a lot of breeds around the world. So we're lucky.
The next question I asked you was what your biggest achievement was as an exhibitor. Now you sent me 2 photographs, so I'm going to pop the first one up, and you just talk us through why where we are here. That's a very young Eddie Patterson.
Do you like the jumper? I might start even half that jumper. But this is Tumbesi Gypsy girl. She was known as Gypsy, and she was well known in the UK and in Ireland. And Gypsy broke so much ground for ridgebacks, especially in Ireland. an absolute fantastic bitch. She was bred by Tommy Boyle, who had a bitch. Now, Tommy wasn't big into breeding or showing anything like that, but he loved his Ridgebacks, and he had a bitch called Kizzy. And we had the dog that we brought in from South Africa in 89, 90, from the Rock Ridge Kennels in Rhodesia, in Johannesburg, Bill and Joey Hard. And Colombo came in through Molly O'Driscoll, who I mentioned earlier, to be used for breeding and for showing. But the 6 months lockup and quarantine just ruined that dog, both mentally and physically. He came out with Queen Anne front legs, which he didn't go in with. A mess mentally. It took us 2 years or more to get that dog right. But we used him at stud with Kizzy because his pedigree was Rock Ridge dogs, known worldwide. And Bill and Joey Hard were going back at this stage. They were in the early 90s, and this was in early 90s, and so as I say, we had this vast knowledge of breeding and pedigree behind it. So that was used, and we got Gypsy. And I mean, I could go on the list. This is enormous for her. She's the breed record holder under the old system in the Irish Kennel Club.
Really?
Annual champion, I don't know how many times, but she was the first to be a UK champion, first FCI champion, and to hold all 3 titles. First ever best in show winner. I think she was maybe the first to win a group, but certainly the first best in show. And this is the picture of her at Drogheda in '96, where she won best in show. And the funny connection with that is, I'm actually surprised I've ever won anything since, because all 3 judges were dead within a short period of time after that show. Dermot Dunn done the breed, and Wendy Jackson done the group, and then Ben Raven done the best in show. And unfortunately, within a couple of years, they were all gone. So they were, but that was massive, for the breed. To win
a huge achievement, yes.
To win a group, yeah, but to win a best in show. But
absolutely.
It's like everything else, Colm, everything it's all luck. We just had 3 judges that day that just like Ridgebacks and just like that bitch.
Everything has its time.
Yeah. But she went on. Her probably outside that, her biggest achievement was in 2000 at Midland Counties, and a lady that's world renowned in the breed, Liz Megginson from South Africa. And Liz goes a long, long time in the breed, back to the 60s. Actually, she was born and bred in Belfast, but without to live in South Africa when she was a young girl. But she is known worldwide within Ridgebacks. And she came to Midland Counties, and there was well over 200 dogs there. And we took Gypsy over simply because it was Liz Megginson. I'd never met the lady before. We went over simply to say, and we took Gypsy with us, and we had her an open bitch. Big classy open bitch, and she ignored us. She moved out, ignored us. We kept making the cuts, and then unbelievable. I mean, we even won the lineup for the CC. We were the only ones who didn't move, and we won the CC, and then we went on and won best of breed. And she told me afterwards, she said, when you have a bitch like or a Ridgeback like this, you don't need to see them move and move and move. She had her mind made up from the first time she put the hands on her.
Yeah.
But on the funny side of that was, there's always funny stories to every occasion, but the funny story of that was, I just went over to thank her and whatever, for the win. And she said, well, there's 2 things, one of them is to find somebody from Belfast owning a Ridgeback like this. And I said, that's very astute. Lady from South Africa, and that's when I found out, I was born and bred in Belfast on the Shore Road, and my mother still lived there. And the other thing was, she says, finding a Ridgeback like this, she says, we don't find Ridgebacks like this anymore. Yeah. This is what they were in the 60s and whatever, around, in South Africa and whatever. You don't find these. And I would love to know the breeding. So I said, well, it's a Rock Ridge dog. And she says, no, this couldn't be. Bill Hard? I said, yeah. She says, no, it couldn't be. That's not one of his. I said, well, the father was. And she said, well, if I had known that, you wouldn't have won. She says, I hate the man. Well, that was a funny story. But as I say, massive achievements with Gypsy. And she then bred for us as well. So.
And your second dog is this lad.
That's Paddy.
Talk us through.
Well, I say we bred Paddy, and Gypsy's his grandmother, his granddam, and as I said, we were lucky enough to use Gordon Cunningham's dog, Monty, and who was from his father was a very famous dog, Panza, from France. And as I said, we were lucky to get this dog or to breed him, and he was head and shoulders as a puppy. He just one of those dogs that just shone out from the nest, and we kept him. And again, he's the breed record holder under the new system, over 100 Green Stars.
Wow.
Many group wins. His only fault to me was his temperament indoors. Ridgeback can be a bit aloof. Paddy was a true outdoor dog, and when he was outside showing, never put a foot wrong. But when he was indoors, he was looking too much.
Yes.
Concentrating too much on who was behind him, who was beside him, what was going on, as opposed to showing. And that's a natural instinct within a Ridgeback when it goes back to as what I said about hunting and working them. They had to be switched on.
So I think you find that. I think you find it with a lot of sporting dogs.
Yeah. So that to me was not his fault, but that was the bit. I think if he had been an indoor dog for showing, but listen, we still have him down there. He's 11.5-year-old. He still thinks he's a puppy the way he runs around the paddock. He's a fabulous dog. I think we might have done more because we stood many times behind a certain Basset in Ireland, but it was, that's the way it was. But and I had never any problem standing behind that Basset because again, fabulous.
Absolutely.
But the Paddy done a lot for us, over the last number of years. And again, we used them at studs. Actually, the biggest compliment that we had in our time within Ridgebacks and breeding, Jack Selby's daughter Pat loved Paddy from a puppy, and Pat was suffering and had fought cancer for many years, and she was always saying to me, Eddie, I want to use Paddy at stud. Somewhere along the line, I want to use him at stud. And she knew she had only a short time left. And she contacted me and said, she used to come over and stay with us in the circuit and that. But she said, I'm having my very last litter, ELAC litter. And this is a kennel that was going on from the 50s. Can I use Paddy at stud? And because of the way she was, her illness, we brought the bitch over here. And sadly, the bitch actually just passed away last week. But we brought the bitch over here and kept her for a lot of weeks, got her in the pup. And then she went back to Pat for her to have the puppies. I was going to do it here, but Pat said, no, Eddie, my time's short. I want to enjoy my very last litter. And she reared them. And we got Binty from that. But so as I say, that is a massive honour for us to be asked for the very last litter of ELAC, because they're world renowned, yes. And for us to get that honour, it's
when you are breeding, do you study pedigrees a lot, or are you do you engage to say, well, I think that dog is going to suit that bitch, or is it a combination of both?
It has to be a combination of everything, Colin. There's no one thing sets out. And again, this goes back to my grounding with my grandfather, with learning about pedigrees and breeding and that, albeit within pigeons. But, they were living animals and, this. But it was a similar type approach to breeding with them, with the stud books and all that type of thing. So we do look at pedigree, but we have to look at the dogs. I look at offsprings from those dogs, especially stud dogs. So look at what they have produced in other litters. Sometimes your first choice doesn't turn out to be the dog you use. So it has to be a big combination of everything. It can't just be one or other, because you have to take the blinkers off, as I say. And I think in many ways, in a lot of breeds and in a lot of kennels, especially a lot of established kennels, they go too far down the line with the blinkers on. And they're scared to go away or try something different. Like we have been blessed and lucky when we've bred. We've had nice litters. They all haven't produced a Paddy or a Gypsy, but we've had nice litters. And as I say, so we've been lucky. We've never had an absolute disaster. But because we look at what we're doing, I'm a great believer in line breeding, but it's line breeding to an extent. When you get to your maybe third generation of line breeding, then I go out to something else. Normally, I try to go to something that has a connection with my breeding. could be 3-4 generations back, could be grandparents, great grandparents to the stud dog I want to use, but a small connection, so it's not a total. Because if you don't, you may as well go back to day one because you're starting off again. Now, our last litter when we bought Dane from South Africa via Switzerland, it was Cheryl Jacobs in Johannesburg who bred him, and the pups were actually born and reared by Yasmin Hope in Switzerland. But that was us starting again after 30 odd years of breeding. That was us going back to base one, as we did with Colombo and Kizzy, because Dia had absolutely no connection with our bloodlines.
Okay.
But we took the chance, and it worked. And we've got a couple of nice youngsters there. How good they are, that's for other people to say, but I'm happy with them. If I wasn't happy with them, Colin, I wouldn't set foot in the ring with them. I'm very critical. I'm not saying they're always group winners or best in show winners, but they have to please me to be able to please the judge, so they don't get across the threshold if they don't. But if I keep a pup and it doesn't turn out, it stays here. It's a pet first and foremost, and they stay here for their life. We don't just have a dog, doesn't work out, shift it on to make a space for another one. I hate that about the dog world, and they're family members to us first and foremost.
Okay.
But sorry, going to quick, it has to be a full combination of everything, but by the end of the day, we make our mind up, because it's the same when people are picking puppies. I let them pick their pup. I give them guidelines of what's available, but I let them pick the pup, because at the end of the day, if it turns out wrong, well, then it's their mistake or it's my mistake for the breeding. It's nobody else's.
Okay. So before we move on to your judging career, we're just going to say good evening to Michael Forte is watching, Colette Muldoon, Bobby Brown, Louise McGuire, Eamon Murray, Kenny Stevenson is watching. And remember, if you've got a question for Eddie, do type it in and send it to us. I'll get to it at some point.
Sorry, if I could just say to Michael Forte, I've still got the cufflinks and the tie pin that he got me from South Africa with the Ridgeback on it. So they're treasured, and thank you for that.
So in terms of your judging career, when did you start judging?
I actually had to look up just to make sure I got it right. My first open show was in 92. And it was at Ballymena, the Ballymena Dog Fancier Club on New Year's Day. And it was held in a wee huckster of a tin shade hut that had a hole in the roof. And now this is 1st of January. There was one big blow heater in the hall that everybody gathered around.
Yeah.
And that was my grounding for judging. I survived it. And then it was a couple of years later, I done another show at Lisburn, another open show, and maybe had a wee bit more knowledge then. But that was my introduction to judging.
And Green Stars, etc., etc. When did you start? Well, let me ask you this first now, because the Northern Ireland obviously is under the jurisdiction of the Kennel Club London. So, did you make a conscious decision to go with Green Stars first, or did you do CCs?
No, I was working through, and I was working towards CCs, and it was very difficult, especially being here. But I had to put in the legwork, like many people from Northern Ireland had to do, working for CCs, and going through the early 90s up into the late 90s, when it wasn't open as much to the judges in the north with the Irish Kennel Club, because of our lack of knowledge and understanding. It was nothing to do with the Irish Kennel Club. It was our the natural progression was the English Kennel Club. So I went and done all my seminars, travelled to England, done open shows up and down the country and this sort of thing. And I was just lucky enough, I was introduced to Patsy and David Lawler in Killarney.
Yes.
And I'm really, and Gail and myself are totally indebted to those people for the way they brought us in as part of the family. Them and Evelyn and the people down there. We now go down and help them the day before, set up the shows. We're doing a wee bit of payback to them, because they really looked after us, as they've done with many. But Patsy in '98 gave me my first set of green stars. And I went down there, and Phil Arthurs went down with me to Stuart. And again, the funny, walking around the show in my best suit, walking around, crapping myself, having to judge these dogs on the circuit. And in those days, we could have had 30, 35 dogs.
Yeah.
A lot came over from England. So anyway, and I know a lot of big names came over from England for the circuit.
Yeah.
So I'm walking around with Phil, and honestly, every person I met was, "Hello, Phil, what are you judging? Is Eddie Stewarting for you?" You know, but I was the understudy always when Phil was there, but
of course, this would have been on the race course, would it?
No. This was at the same where they are now at the cathedral.
All right, okay, yeah.
They were back to there. It was just, I think they only newly went back there.
Right.
So, but that gave me my first. And believe it or not, then many years later, I got the letter from Patsy. They gave me and Gail now, groups and things, but they got the letter asking me to do best in show at Killarney, which, on the circuit, that's big time. It's just, it's one, it's the same as judging it for the Irish Kennel Club best in show, on the circuit.
Yeah.
That's what, for me,
that's a big achievement.
That was a big thing. So, as I say, unfortunately, I had to turn it down because Linda Matthews had got in about a week early. They say it's like buses, you wait for you for one and then two come along, and they literally came in a week apart. And Linda got me first, and then that's the way it happened. And honestly, Patsy gave me the rounds to the kitchen, and you'll never judge for me again. She gave me the rounds, but no, we're good friends. And a couple of years ago,
at this point in time, you're approaching all breed status.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. I've 8 groups done, so I need another one. So hopefully to get me over the 85%, but we'll see. And one or two things had been already. We had invites to judge over last year, which may have got me over that. So it's put on the back burner. Colin, it'll happen if it's meant to happen. As I say, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm well qualified. I started out to try and be an all-rounder. All I wanted to do was judge the sporting breeds, the gun dogs, terriers, and hounds. But then when they split up the FCI, and under the old system, I probably would have been happy just staying with those 3 groups. But then when they came to FCI and they were all split up, and all of a sudden you've got 6 groups, and then you look at it and you think, well, maybe do a 7th group. And when you're so close to it, why not? The most important thing is to judge my breed. My breed is the most important thing anywhere in the world to judge. Yeah. And and if they took everything away from me apart from Ridgebacks, it wouldn't bother me, because that's what I'm about, is Ridgeback. But it's nice just to work there. But it's a lot of work if you're doing it right. It's not just the invitation, the education, the seminars. I still do that. Yeah. Some people tell me I overdo it.
Yeah,
I don't.
You've got to.
Yeah, you have to. And I wish a lot of sorry?
When you first started judging, can you remember the best piece of advice that you were given?
Well, again, as I said that with Tommy Agnew, go in and judge the dogs. Forget about who's on the end of the lead. Forget about what the dog done last week. Never judge on reputation. Never judge on favours. Never judge on your next appointment. Judge the dogs that stand in front of you. If a dog's won a best in show last week and you've seen it win that best in show, and it comes in under you in a class, and that dog doesn't fulfill what you want or doesn't perform on the day, don't put it up. You have to. And that brings me. I try to install in new judges. You have to do this, and if you can and I always do a debrief on myself on my judging afterwards. And could I done this or done that better? And you get the odd thing you say, maybe I should have done that or I shouldn't have done that, or you're never 100% happy, and you shouldn't be. Otherwise, as I say, you're too blasé. There's always the odd wee niggles you get when you judge afterwards. But as long as it's nothing major, and we're all human, we all make mistakes, and as long as you admit to it to yourself and rectify it maybe the next time. But that was the best advice: is just judge the dogs, regardless of what that's done before. If it doesn't, and again, as I said too, when we're taking seminars and new judges, I always ask the question at the start of the seminar about, how many people do you make happy when you judge? And I tell them, hold that thought. And then at the end of it, again, I go back and say the question, how many? And of course they say, 2. And well, what else? Or you're 2 CCs, or 1, you're best of breed. And I said, no, totally wrong. The only person you need to make happy is yourself.
Yeah.
And it's simple that way. And if you stick to that and do it honestly, and even if you make a mistake, if it's an honest mistake,
we all make mistakes.
And your opinion, if it's an honest opinion, it can never be wrong, because Absolutely. It's your opinion.
And that brings me to a question that Susan White has asked in relation to Tommy Agnew. Do you think enough judges research the new breeds that they're judging, or do you think they're just blasé about it?
I mean, end of the day, Colm, I don't know what other people do. I can speak for myself. And Gail would tell you, like when I get an invitation, and especially, and we are lucky, like yourself and Rita, now we're lucky to travel, especially around Europe, and we've been further afield. But to do the thing right, and should it be at a match, an open show, or the biggest show in the world, if whatever you're judging, that dog should be given the same time and respect of your knowledge and effort, no matter whatever the show is or whatever the breed is. And if it's something really obscure, you have to go out of your way to find out. I done Russian hounds in Norway a couple of years ago. I never heard of them, never seen them. And they're a regional breed. They're not even recognized by the Russian Kennel Club. They're recognized by the Norwegian Kennel Club, but they're a regional breed. They don't qualify for CACIB and all this sort of thing. And I was to do them. And could I find information on these dogs? And I was able to, Google's fantastic now to do this. Couldn't find there's no breed standard for them. It's just descriptions. Okay. And that's what you have to do. And you have to go out of your way and go that extra mile to find out. And there was only 2 dogs entered. But, whether it's 2 or 102, you still have to do that, because that person is still paid the same money for your opinion at that show as any other dog. So you have to. And whether others do, I don't know.
And speaking of Russia, do you enjoy judging abroad?
Love it. I love meeting people. As many of you would know, I'm a people person. Apart from in the house, I'm not allowed to talk in the house. But so when I go out, I like to talk. I like to meet people.
Stop putting on the hard.
As long as I get my housework done, Gail's happy. But anyway, no, I love travel. I hate the flying and waiting in airports, but I love meeting people. I've been blessed to meet many people around the world. There are judges and things that we meet up occasionally. We stay in touch with in Facebook now. It's a lot easier with when we keep in touch, and it's fantastic. I have a very good friend, Jose, in Brazil, who I judged with in Australia, and I call him my Brazilian brother now, because we were inseparable when we were in Australia. The 2 of us hit it off. I even took him to an Irish bar in Brisbane. We had Guinness or black beers. He said he couldn't pronounce Guinness. So as I say, these sort of things. So yes, I really enjoy it. Different countries, different systems. You have to. A lesson I learned very early on. It's not every country has the same system. Even if it's a CACIB show, some countries have different systems. Should it be on placings or dogs that don't come back in if they don't get an X and this. So make sure and don't be afraid to ask the organ. Make sure you know what you're doing before you go, and have all that done. So
absolutely,
when you walk into the ring, you're not making a mistake. And where the awkward bit comes in is if you're judging, as we did when we were in South Africa, the first day show was an international show, FCI, but the next 2 days shows were national under their own CUSA system.
Yes,
and they had some breeds different standards. Like I said, Dachshunds. Right. I done the international group the first day, didn't place this Dachshund, it was standard long. Next day I done the hounds, all the hounds, on their national. And actually this long haired Dachshund, I ended up on the group under me.
Right.
Because it was more English type, it was not FCA type Dachshund, but it was very much the other. And you have to judge. I mean, some judges have said to me, I just like the dogs and judge the dogs, regardless of the standards, in different countries. You can't do that, in my opinion. If you're licensed to, if you're being invited to judge at a certain type of show, you have to judge to their requirements and regulations, not what you want. It's what they require, sometimes people forget that, so, and that's the difficult when you're in Australia or South Africa or whatever, where they could have 2 different standards over the same weekend, and you fall to judge these 2 breeds, you have to be just keep on your wits, so.
Absolutely. And now, aside from Rhodesian Ridgebacks and Basenjis, which you're also involved in, is there a breed that you really love to judge?
I would say possibly any sighthound, especially the long-legged sighthounds.
Okay.
Love judging them. Love the breeds. Totally different characteristics to scenthounds. And when you're judging them, totally different approach as a judge. You know, how you judge them, how you go over them, how you even approach them, and this sort of thing. And a different eye on their movement. You have to have. And again, many people have said to you, and you've heard it on your interviews. You know, you have to have an eye for a dog. You can't train that. You can't educate people on that. I think it's something just you're born with, and you have it naturally. You have an eye for a dog. You know nothing about that dog's breed. You know the official standard. You know whether it's a good dog or not just by looking at it and seeing it moving. The other breeds, terriers, love judging terriers, especially the bull type terriers. You know, the staffies, Amstaffs. You know, the bull terriers. Love judging those sort of breeds. You know, especially the staffies. You know, they're not a breed I would ever have myself, but I love judging them. And again, I've been tutored on how to judge them properly. And when you're watching the judging staffies, you know if he knows what he's doing or he don't simply by watching him.
Mm-hmm.
And Kerry Blues outside the bull type breeds, the Kerrys, I totally admire them. I admire the way they produce them, you know, or present them rather in the ring. It's a skill, you know. I put a dog second in Sweden at a show, Kerry in the group, and I said to the guy, if you can present this dog or trim this dog correctly, you easily win the group under me. He brought the Kerry under me. It was outstanding dog, movement and type. But he brought it under me the way our Kerry people would bring it to the show and then spend 2 hours finishing it.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he says, well, where do I go to learn this? I don't have the knowledge. And I said, well, you need to get yourself to Ireland and learn. Mm. You know, so I really admire and we have some really talented people in Ireland with, you know, with Kerrys and things, you know, so, you know, it's all about that final presentation. So they would be, sighthounds and some terriers, yeah.
Okay. And is there a fault that really irritates you?
Confirmation faults.
You're a hound person, of course.
Well, to me, a dog has to be able to do its job. And as I said beforehand, you know, when I'm researching the breed standard, the first thing I look at is the description of the dog and the purpose of the dog going back. No dog, proper dog, was ever bred to run around 4 bits of tape in a show ring. They had a purpose in life that they were originally bred from. And yes, breeds have changed and developed over the years, over the decades and whatever. And when you look back in old books, and I have old journals that are going back into the late 1800s, early 1900s. And when you look at some of the encyclopedias and drawings in them, the dogs nowadays look nothing like them. But they had a purpose, and the purpose hasn't changed when you look at the standard and look back on those old journals. So that, to me, the confirmation, which then is coupled with the movement, has to be there, you know, and that can be anything from bad fronts, over-angulated behind. You know, people think that you get these angulations behind, and you know the rear angles in the next county. You know, and they can't understand what's wrong with it. It's flashy looking, but I simply would go up to the back of a dog and put my finger on between the hip bones and push down, and the whole end then just cantilevers down.
Yes.
Because there's no strength in the likes of in the hawk and the stifle because of that. And sometimes they try to produce this for the show ring, and a dog like that could never go out into the field and do anything. You know, it would just break down within minutes.
But that's becoming more. That's becoming more prevalent in modern times. Certainly within some hounds, but certainly in gun dogs. Yeah. Where you have over-exaggerated angulation and particularly in I think I'm going to be controversial. Group 7 breeds, for instance, for my mind, are tending towards being over-exaggerated these days.
Some are. yes, some breeds you can get a little bit of exaggeration there, which is fine. They could still go and do their job.
Absolutely.
They can then they can still present themselves in the group ring or the best in show ring and win their dual purpose. And that's why I go back. Joe Herman, when he had his Labradors, Joe both worked his dogs and showed his dogs, and Joe won at the highest levels in gun dogs, both here and in the UK. And the Ballyhenry breeding is renowned around the world. You know, so as I say, it is possible to do. Unfortunately, there's now this split. It's either your show dog or a working dog. And as I say, in some breeds, you know, when you look at them, they're a working gun dog will go over a gate, under a gate, and through a gate. Some show gun dogs, if you opened the bloody gate, they couldn't get through it, you know. But yes, it has changed, and that irritates me, you know, when they go away totally from the purpose of the dog purely for a show. It's okay when you go to some of the toy breeds and and that sort of thing where we're companion dogs and lap dogs. You know, I don't see any problem with that, but because they are as they are. But you know, for proper dogs, you know, when you see some of even the bull breed type dogs, and they're so weak in jaw, even staffies, you know, and a vital important point in staffies is the cheeks and that muscle in the cheeks. And you look at so many and they don't have it. I'm
going to take issue with you there now. I'm going to take issue with it there now, because I mean, you know, you said you don't mind that in the Group 9 breeds, etc., but the proper dogs like staffies, I mean, Group 9 breeds had their purpose, a lot of them, and in actual fact, Group 9 breeds are the breeds that are causing us the most issues worldwide in terms of health issues, etc.
Maybe Colin, I wrongly phrased that, but as I say, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, and I totally agree with you, within the Group 9 breeds that have the major health problems, and that's possibly the biggest group numerical that has these problems. I know there's some in Group 2 and whatever, but what I'm trying to say is, I, as a judge, have less issues with a toy type breed being overpresented coat-wise and this sort of thing. They still have to move for me. They still have to be able to, you know what, I've judged Yorkies and they still have to go on and move the same as a big dog. I don't forgive that. But what I'm saying is, when there's specific things are within breeds, say the likes of the staffies where they're losing the cheek, which is a very important thing for the breed. But yet the rest of the dog looks flashy and a good outline in the ring. But forget about one simple point about the cheeks, which is vitally important for them to do their job. Or you know, or a gun dog that's, as you say, that's too vastly overangulated that couldn't do its job, would break down in the field. That's the sort of things that really annoy me. And I say, I don't judge Group 9. Maybe I'll change my mind when I get that far, but maybe they won't allow me now.
So I also asked you, one of your questions was, had there been a particular dog that you've judged that you reckon was as close to the standard as possible? Now you sent me a couple of photographs, so we're going to talk relatively quickly through this guy.
Yeah, this dog was in Jyväskylä in Finland, and
it's a great show.
It's a massive show, you know, and they had a theme that year of Phantom of the Dog Show, and we all had to enter the group ring through this big cloud of smoke or steam, and it was very theatrical the way Yarmo puts it on, whatever, and fantastic experience. But I went in to do the group, and I'd done the pre-judging, and this boy hadn't arrived or whatever, and it was a rush to get me into the ring to get the dogs in, so I hadn't really seen him in the pre-judging. And anyway, they came in, and as soon as I seen this dog coming around doing his first lap, they bring them in one at a time with the spotlight on them. I just thought, wow. And again, this is something I try to teach judges. If something walks in or runs in and you go, wow, and the hair stands up in the back of your head, it's right.
Yeah.
And it was, I have to say, there was an Azawak that day, ran him very closely. This is Pinino. The Azawak ran him very, very close, but I couldn't go past him. And as I found out afterwards, apparently he was the top dog in Finland that year or whatever. So fantastic.
I think with the proviso that when you see something coming in that you go, wow, and yes, the hairs are standing up in the back of your neck. Once when you put your hand on that dog and you find everything exactly where it's supposed to be, that is such.
Yeah, your first impression when that dog runs in and you say, I can't see anything wrong with this dog.
Yeah.
So when you put your hands on, and you know it's frowned upon at the big shows in Europe where you don't go over them like you do in a breed class. But, on a dog like that, I purposely would put my hands on because I just want to make that connection. And, it's, and Miko there, who's the handler, fantastic, talented guy that can handle, so. And again, most of these dogs that you're going to go through, again, handlers, fantastic. And they don't have to hide anything because the breeding of the dogs is fantastic.
And a lot of people will be very familiar with this lady.
Gwen. Yeah. Gwen's done okay. She's won one or two shows, so she has.
Genius.
This is Frosty Snowman, world winner. What's he not? What not has he done? I judged him. I probably judged him as a youngster. And Gwen again, another talented handler.
Oh, I think she has to be one of the most talented breeder handlers in the world today.
Yep, for breeding as well. Miko, he handled the Afghan, but Gwen here breeds her dogs, both the Gons and the Bees. Such a talented breeder and handler. And, Frosty went to Australia there and he was third best in show at Sydney Royal, which is probably one of the biggest shows in Australia. And, he was beat by an outstanding standard poodle, and even I, on watching it on TV, sort of said, well, I ought to give it to the poodle. And I love Frosty.
It wasn't a white standard poodle, was it?
A white standard, yeah.
I know that standard poodle.
Sorry?
I know that standard poodle.
Yeah, it came in from America, apparently. It had, at that stage, that was its sixth show in Australia, and its sixth best in show. So something can't be wrong with it.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
But
beautiful.
But Gwen, and I have to say that family are gifted with what they do in Holland with
A quick funny about Gwen. We judged at Rotterdam 2 years ago, and I done both the Petits and the Gons. And Frosty was already away to Australia, but his son was there, and Gwen handled him in the breed, and this beautiful Petit, to me, totally correct in size and type, and the coats and all that she produces are totally correct for the breed, and her handling and showmanship helps. But anyway, as I say, we came into the group, and I cut them down to 6, and both the Grand and the Petit was there. And then they asked me to cut them down to 3 to do the 3 places. But don't announce it, just do it. So I kept the Grand. He was only a youngster, only 14, 15 months. I kept him, but I didn't keep the Petit like Gwen was handling. And she came over, and she made me kill me if she's watching this, but she came over to take and I said, no, out. I said, the young lady's doing well. Out. And she just smiled at me. And the Grand was put up third in the group, but as I said, it was... I wanted to give the young girl her place in the big group because she was doing a fantastic. I don't know who she was. Don't know whether it was a sister, but she was doing a fantastic job handling. And I wanted to give her that wee bit, And I like doing that there, especially with the younger ones, handlers coming through.
And your next, most people will know this lady.
Kiwi, yeah, Jenny's world won all over Europe and Crufts and. Again, a talented breeder and handler.
And nothing to hide on a Pharaoh.
Sorry?
Nothing to hide on a Pharaoh.
Nothing. And on this day, Gail judged this dog about 4 or 5 years before it and gave it the group. And Arnie Foss there was two shows at the weekend, and he gave it the group the day before that. And it actually went best in show both days. And he was about 9 or 10 years older when I judged him. And she brought him in on the veteran, but with a different handler. She had retired him for 2 or 3 years, but brought him under me. I think she was just trying to trick me. But she had a young girl handling. She didn't handle it. brought it in, and he got easy. When I looked at it, I said to myself, this has to be him. You know, even at this age, I haven't seen him for 4 years or more. It has to be him. And I put him up, and it was afterwards I found out Jenny brought him into the group, and he went on reserve best in show that day, you know, as an old veteran, but still hadn't lost it. Beautiful, beautiful dog. And Jenny, again, such a talent.
Gifted. Gifted. And where are we here?
This is Sweden, Nicholas. This was the Swedish winners. Again, Nicholas Eriksson, again, massive talented breeder in Salukis, known worldwide, has won all over the world with his dogs. And again, really nice guy, fantastic handler. And you know, when you're talking to him about other dogs and things, he would tell you, you know, what he would like, even if he didn't get on with the other breeders, handlers out of it, but he would acknowledge good dogs, you know, and a good hound person and dog man, you know. I mean, that day I give the bitch Cassie to a smooth. You can just about see its head there, I think. But a beautiful, beautiful dog, you know. And when I said afterwards to him, I said, listen, we don't see many smooths. I didn't know where I was right or wrong, but I liked it. And he said, well, I gave that best in specialty the previous summer. So to get that from him, who I think is one of the top in the world in Salukis, to get that back, I thought I done all right, you know. So, but again, fantastic dog.
And this lad?
That was in South Africa, and it turned out, I don't know the exact way, I think it's from Italy, but I'm trying to get Neil there, who's handling. As I say, he told me that there's some connection, because I said, fabulous dog. I had done them at the Swedish winners 9 months before, and he says, yes, we know. And I think it's a half brother, maybe.
Okay.
To the dog, but again, fabulous dog. Has won. Now, he was only a young dog there, but and I actually give him best in show that day. It was their international. I done the breed, the group, and the best in show, something we don't do here. And I was a bit reluctant, you know. But when you're judging, you have to be honest. And it was the best dog stand there, regardless that I'd done breed, group, and best in show. Fabulous, fabulous dog. And you know, Neil, that day where we had the laugh about it was, I had to give him a little handling class, because whether he was nervous or a novice to the dog, running it far too fast and this sort of thing, which is a massive pet hate of mine. But we actually give him a handling class, and you know, we laugh about it now. You know, that was 4 or 5 years ago, and we still keep in touch, and we still laugh about the handling class at the international, even in the best in show ring, because he got 3 classes that day, or 3 handling classes that day. So no, fabulous dog, and fabulous.
Finally, this guy.
I would say, after all the fancy dogs we've seen here, and just so that I don't get it wrong, because this is Paul Danaher from Australia, with his dog Jake, multi-supreme best in show winning dog. Of course, I didn't know, a Harrier. This dog came in. I was doing the group, I said Adelaide, and this dog came in, and again, plain ordinary dog, you know, for a hound person, plain ordinary dog, honest to the days born. Just, you know, I would probably say the best dog, or certainly the best hound I've ever judged.
Wow.
Fabulous, fabulous dog. And this dog goes out and works in a pack.
Wow.
And you know, and Paul breeds working dogs, you know, and then shows them, you know. So, and you know, fantastic handler, and that, you know, he knows how to handle a hound as a proper hound. You could see him handling hounds at Stradbally, you know, doing it as a hound show, the hound person would. You know, he is that type, and we spent a long time talking afterwards, just about hounds and working hounds, and we've kept in touch. But this dog, Jake, to me, that was just a wow moment. It was, you know, it's just, and I say, if somebody said to me, what's the best dog you ever judged, I would say this boy. That's why I put him on last, you know, it's this boy.
I can see it, because, I mean, you know, even looking at the photograph, he looks absolutely...
Yeah. And on his toes the whole time, the head going, looking... The nose in the air, the eye going, everything was there in that dog. You know, so a privilege to judge and find a dog like that in a lifetime. You know, the only other dog there, and I forgot to send you a photo, was a dog that I ran around the ring after, and I met him slightly earlier. Probably the best basset I've ever judged anywhere in the world was Arthur, Barry O'Neill's dog.
Yes. Yeah. Never
People
got
say
my
to me,
hands on him, but
yeah,
I've
I
seen him.
judged him as a
Yeah,
youngster. I judged him when he was older. He won groups under me.
yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous Bassett. You
And
know, he took Barry in. Barry didn't take him in. You know, and Barry won't mind me saying that because fabulous dog. People say to me, "Do you never get fed up standing behind that dog?" I said, "Well, why would you?"
why would you?
I'm quite happy to stand behind a dog of that
Yeah,
quality in
yeah,
second place. You know, because you don't come across many Arthurs, and he won so many best in shows and groups, and you don't get that by being wrong.
absolutely.
No, 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 lovely
Um,
dog.
so is there a dog, past or present, that you've never had your hands on that you would love to have put your hands on?
Present wise, I don't really know because I don't really. I'm not one for sitting around the rings watching dogs. Yes, when we go away
Okay.
and watch, and we can see dogs that we like.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't follow them. There's nothing there that and really the dogs that I've loved that I've got my hands on that come to mind, and it's a difficult question because when you afterwards you'll sort of think I forgot about this one or that one.
Yes.
There's four dogs, three of them here and one across the water that I never got my hands on, but always admired. One of them was John Kelly's captain.
Yeah.
Fantastic wolfhound and done so much, and he was the fabulous dog. Ralph Dunn's Garfield.
Absolutely.
What can you say?
I've
I
had
know
my
he won
hands on them.
cross, but I know he won cross, but apart from that, as they would say, he came back the next week to Paddy's Day. I don't even think he won his class, but
No,
but I seen him from outside the ring. He really has a novice judge, and
it
I
was
thought,
stunning.
oh, beautiful. And Ralph's such a nice person and handler, good handler. The other one going way back in my early days, Hazel O'Brien's greyhound, Mary Rose.
Okay.
Again, fantastic hound. Nothing to hide in a greyhound. Hazel might have been the best handler to try and keep up with the greyhound, but she knew how to show a dog. But and again, we got on fantastic with Hazel and Steve and that. So as I say, a lovely, lovely dog who sticks in my mind from the early days. And when we go back into the late 80s and that, Mary Rose was winning groups and things, full hound groups. And
Yes.
he stuck, it's just stuck out there, and always stuck in the mind. The last one really is the one from the UK that was the breed record holder, and in my view, one of the best Ridgebacks I've ever seen was Lady Donnabunk. It was Linda Cox's, her pet name was Hassel, and she came through the ranks at the same time as we had Gypsy coming through the ranks, or in that sort of era, and won Crufts, best of breed of Crufts, I don't know, 3-4 times. Fabulous Ridgeback, and I'm not even sure. I think I might have judged her when she was an old veteran. I'm not even sure of that. But as a youngster, I would have loved to have judged her when she was in her prime because they made fabulous, and very much of what I like in them. So, and again, Linda's great handler. Which helps.
Yes.
But again, but you can't hide on a Ridgeback no matter if the handler's on. I can forgive if a dog was in under a handler that's not doing us any favor. I try to look past that and see what the dog's doing as opposed to what the handler's messing up, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
And in terms of exhibitors, if you've got an irate exhibitor, how do you deal with it?
I just tell Gail, and Gail goes and speaks with him.
I must tell Rita that one.
It's the old thing. You just diffuse the situation, and you don't smile at them. You don't stand just stare at them and smile at them because sometimes that can make it worse. You simply just detach yourself from the situation and say to the steward, "Listen, when they've cooled down, if they want to come and talk to me, I'm quite happy to come and talk to them, as long as they're going to behave themselves." And and I try to explain to them, "Listen, I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but it's my opinion. So the opinion's right. You mightn't agree with me. Every other judge in this show mightn't agree with me, but that's my opinion." And it happens. You just have to try and work around it, Colin, without making a big issue. I mean, years ago in Holland, I was watching the Ridgebacks, and a lady who I'm very friendly with, an older lady, was doing Ridgebacks, and there was an exhibitor in a class, and she got 4th out of 4. A young girl handling, and she went over and she kicked the bench chair at the side of the ring, and it went flying, and she stormed out. And the next thing, the judge went tearing after her, to where they were caged, and she got tore into. And I thought, no, that's not the way to do it.
No.
And the steward had to go over and pull the judge back.
Yeah.
I thought, no. Send the steward over and ask the steward for that lady to come back into the ring and have a word. And if you want to give him a dressing down or whatever, that's up to you. But don't certainly go chasing people around shows, not to give them a piece of their mind. And Italy, in Milan a couple of years ago, I was doing Afghans, and I had the first class puppy. And I had these two beautiful puppies. And one was barely 6 months, and the other one was 8 months or so. And there were two lovely looking ones. One wasn't as far on in his development, but to me was a bit more complete in what I like in an Afghan, as opposed to the other one was a wee bit more further on, and but maybe going through a slight stage. So I placed them, both got very promising. I placed them 1 and 2, and I put the younger one first. And the lady outside the ring, a typical Italian mummy, what she was giving me in Italian from outside the ring, and I was mad, hadn't a clue what was shouting at me and all. I was shouting into the ring, and the steward went over and spoke to her and warned her. But she came over afterwards, and there they get their critiques, obviously, after the breed's done. And she came over, and I said, listen, if this lady wants to talk to me quickly before we go next week, I'll have a quick chat with her. But she got her critique, and she looked at it and read it, and she looked up at me, and she went, because she read the critique and she seen what I was doing, she accepted it. But, but see, for that whole time I was doing the breed, I was wondering, how am I getting out of here,
In terms of your judging career, do you have something that you reckon is your biggest achievement?
I have to say, being asked to judge any time is an achievement and an honour. But if you have to pick out certain shows, judging your own breed, no matter how big the show is, how small the show is, judging your own breed is the biggest honour you can be asked from the people within your breed to ask the opinion on that. To me, that's any time I've judged it, should it be at open level or international level, it's always the biggest privilege. Very close second to that is judging at our national shows. I think any judge from any country who gets asked to judge at their shows, their national shows, it's the biggest honour and a massive honour. And I've been lucky and privileged as a scale a few times over the years to judge at the St. Patrick's Day show. And I've got a small collection of the wee badges they give for that when you judge at that one show. And I've judged breeds, stakes, and the groups at Paddy's Day. I'm only missing one, so maybe when I'm in a wheelchair and they can wheel me in for the final 10, I'll maybe get there and get the set. But
talk to me about this photograph.
Well, that was my very first best in show, and I think anybody that was there that day, I don't think there was a dry eye in the whole hall.
No.
This dog belonged to Daniel Mooney, and Dan used to come to our training classes. And this was Lady, such a lovely Rottweiler. And people say, you put it up, different people put it up for the wrong reasons that day. I said, no. One, you have a wee bit of humanity there, yes. And there was 1 or 2 other dogs in the best in show lineup that I really liked, but I always liked Lily since she came as a puppy to our training class. I did like her from within the breed. But that was shortly after Daniel had passed away tragically at a young age, and I'd done the best in show, and I think June Wall, she'd done the group that day.
Yes.
Forgive me, I can't remember who done the breed, but anyway, and people are saying to me, "Oh, you're under pressure now." And I said, "Listen, I'll just do what I want, and because at the end of the day, it's my best in show, and I'll do what I want." And they came in, and I was choking, and there was tears in me when I was walking forward to Barry to give him the rosette. Just such an emotional day, and. In many ways, people say right, wrong, or whatever, Colin, but sometimes you have to have a wee bit of humanity.
You got to do what you have to do.
Yes, and you have to do that, and it's a bigger picture. And as I said, and 1 or 2 hierarchy in the Kennel Club asked me about it, and I said, should I never get an invite to judge again? I can sleep happy in my bed.
Yes. The
dog was a good dog. It wasn't as if it was a horrendous thing that, what the hell is he doing? But, she was a good example of the breed. So no qualms there. Came before me, maybe somebody might have done something different, but on that day it was my best in show, and I done what I wanted and I did it. And
Absolutely.
And I done it for the reasons that I wanted to do it for, not for anybody else's.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier. Do you think judges have a role in the development of breeds, and if yes, do you think a lot of judges understand that role?
Maybe the sort of, I don't like calling them bigger senior judges, whatever, maybe more experienced judges do have a grasp on it. I don't know that all would have that grasp on it, unfortunately, and it's been for decades. There's always been the dog that's flavour of the month, and especially if it's a male, and if it's winning in the ring, everybody's using it at stud without any thought of the next generation or the generations after that. So what happens is, if this dog's, producing faults, and sometimes you don't see the faults till maybe the second generation on from that usage, and they don't think about it there. And if that's constantly coming out, once that's into a breed, it can be very hard to get out if that dog's been used too many times. And to me, that's the judge's fault, because if that dog doesn't please you, but you put it up because it's won whatever number of best in shows, this, that, and the other. Again, it goes back. You shouldn't judge on reputation. You judge what you like. And judges have to realize, if they continually put that dog up and there is something not correct with it, and maybe because of who owns it or what it's won before, they're actually doing that breed a disservice. So yes, in a way that if you're judging that breed, put up the best example there that you can find regardless. As far as actually influence a breed, yes, from that position you are influenced maybe what goes forward in the future because of the usage of that dog, especially a male, because obviously females can only have so many litters, but the bitches, but the stud dogs can be used and overused without thought. So you have to be, yes, careful as a judge what you're doing. But I think really it comes down to the breeders are the most important people in dogs and breeds. Unfortunately nowadays, and I might get shot down for it, but there's more producers than breeders. And
yes.
I was lucky to grow up in the era there where we still had many breeders and knowledgeable people. There's too many dogs. They have a dog 2 years old enough to breed, and they go to the dog down the road and have a litter, and the kennel club register them, and they're doing nothing wrong. But they put themselves down then as a breeder, and there's no thought in it, So thankfully, we have 1 or 2 breeders in Ireland or within my breed that actually think about it, and they've used dogs from overseas and this, that, and the other for the benefit of the dogs, of the breed. And as I say, we've been reasonably successful in it, both myself and the other breeders, in what they're doing, So credit to them. But as I say,
on that sort of continuing on from there. We know that breeds, certainly within Europe, are under attack, and there are brassophatic breeds. There are other breeds that are under serious attack from activists, both here and in mainland Europe. What's your view on how kennel clubs are handling this? Do you think they should adopt a common policy?
Well, again, going back to some of your previous interviews, which I've watched most, maybe not live because I forgot, but most of them, and I agree with the majority of answers that people have given. The FCI and the Kennel Club London, to me, they're the two big, the two big groups and within dogs. They should be leading it to the fore. And then other kennel clubs, the likes of our own and other kennel clubs under the FCI wing, should be giving support to them. And it should be a collective effort. But I think going forward, the two big groups have to be the FCI and Kennel Club London have to be to the fore, because they're the powerhouses when it comes to this sort of thing. But I think it has to come with that coupled with the people within those breeds, and they have to listen to people within those breeds. Should it be breed councils or top breeders or whatever? Because they're the people that know those breeds and know the faults and how they can maybe rectify them and going forward, and then they can get the evidence or the weaponry there to take on these other groupings there that are a danger to our sport. But it's not up to me as a Ridgeback person to advise people on brassophallic breeds, because to be quite honest, I don't know anything about the science behind it and the breeding behind it.
Fair point.
So that's not for me. I certainly will put my shoulder to the wheel and get any help I can, but it's not for me to drive that, because if it was something to do with Ridgebacks, and there was, when that whole program came out a lot of years ago, Ridgebacks were on their list, wrongly so. And I went to a big meeting across the water with the Ridgeback Breed Council and fraternity, and we got it overturned very quickly and got Ridgebacks off the list. But I felt justified in doing and helping with that. But these other breeds, I'm not. So I think yes, but it's the big groupings, the big organisations that have to lead it, and with everybody behind them, to support them.
And in terms of you are president of Newton Arts. Gail is secretary of Newton Arts. I apologise for the earlier error, Gail, in the introduction on Facebook. I'll probably pay for that at a later date. But how important is it for you to give something back to the sport?
I think for the sport to survive, it's vitally important, and by everybody. I'm privileged to be president of Newton Arts for a number of years, and actually took over from my mentor, Tom Agnew, before he passed. And actually, in respect and honour to Tommy, we actually left the club vacant of a president for 1 year after his passing. And then I was voted in to take it, and I would like to think, with both the work that myself and Gail sort of carries out on behalf of the club and other members of the club, we have a fantastic club behind us, and 50, 60 members, and the club is run by the members. We have a committee because Canon Club says on your returns you have to submit a committee, and you can count in one hand the number of times our committee would meet over the last even decade, because the members, we have a members meeting every month. Every member can come from, if it's their first night or if they've been there for 30 years, everybody gets the same opportunity to speak or put things to the floor or whatever. And it's run by the members. And from that, then what I expect is for then the members to step up when it comes to running events, should it be educational events or shows, etc. And they do. They turn up the day before the show for setup all day. And you've been to our shows and you've seen the way we put the thing together, and I take pride in it. I have no apology of saying I think we put on a 5-star show. Sometimes the weather isn't for us, but I can't do anything about that. But we go out of our way.
You see, that's where the child of Prague comes in.
Well, you see, it didn't work the first year, and then Joan gave me a booter as well. So they said kick the head off the child of Prague and rub the booter's belly. And some people say, is that Gail and Eddie? And I'm not saying which way around, but anyway. But so as I say, yes, we have a fantastic club there. We have led the way, and again, no apology for it. We've led the way in Northern Ireland with educational classes and seminars on behalf of the Kennel Club. Even to the recent weeks, we're the only club up and running training classes for people, and we welcome them all over. We do it for a minimal fee, and it's it goes to charity. We give a lot back, and again, I think a lot of people should be giving more back. I would love to see the day that when it came to Newton Arts show, I know the committee isn't allowed to exhibit, but I would love to see it when none of the members exhibited, and we were all there just working for the club on that one day.
And do you think enough? Do you think we encourage young people enough? And in fairness to Newton Arts, and I do say this, you have by standards quite a young committee. By current day standards.
Yeah, I'm probably the oldest. Maybe Tony, our chairman, might be slightly older.
You're ancient by their standards.
Oh yeah. When you look around the country and you see, without causing any disrespect, anyone you see where it's an aging sport, as far as the organisation and committees stand. I know some clubs are younger, and
but you have managed to get a young eclectic committee together, and who are very passionate, and I know a lot of them. I mean,
but it's not just
Fran involved. You've got Cheryl involved. They may not be on the committee because I don't know what the committee is, but they are all involved. Yep. Ruth is involved. You've got young people.
Yes, we have the likes of Ruth Byers, and compared to me, she's a youngster. We have Ronnie and Jeanette Kirk.
Yeah.
On our committee, but I said we, as a members club, it's not just committee people that turn up to help. We have people there who don't want to go on the committee, but they're the first at the gate when it comes to helping. Yeah. And so we're blessed with that. I have to say, when we do have a youngish club, but I made it known when the whole dynamics in Newton Arts changed in 2001. This was the way that I wanted the club to go forward as a members club, to get the support there. No hierarchy. You'll never see me running around the show, I'm the big I am. We're a non-badge club, as I call it. We run as Newton Arts members, and that's what I'm proud of, that the club does this. And that's
Eddie, that's what we've lost, because when I started getting involved with dog shows, and when I'm talking about dog shows, I'm talking about limited shows. It was me putting chairs out in the morning of the show, and then at the end of the show, you took the chairs, you stacked them, and you packed them back up, and you said nothing. That was it. That was it. But that's where you began, and I'm not sure that is true today anymore. That people want to get involved at that level.
That's and not even just you people or young people. People who are up within the show fraternity are very successful and travel and win and do this and the other. To me, they have so much knowledge to give back, and they don't.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about coming and putting chairs out or lifting the dog poo or doing things I do. But
it's on various levels.
Yes, but even I do it. I mean, I wouldn't expect anyone to do anything if I wasn't going to do it. So I go around and you'll see me as president going around lifting the poo bags off the ground, during the show or doing whatever. But that's to set an example to others. If I'm willing to do it at my level, then feel free to help me. I don't like this culture of people sitting in their hierarchy saying, well, I've been there, done it for so many years now, it's for somebody else to do it, and I'll sit back and be the big I am. Yeah. I actually had it a couple of times with judges, overseas judges, well-known hierarchy, as I call them, who have came to judge for us. And when they see me running around doing all this, it's a case of, why are you doing this? You're the president of this club. You should be sitting here with us and enjoying the show. I couldn't. Even the year that we had the international, and I was honoured to do the best in show. I done all the presentations and whatever at the start, all the introduction of the judges, done the photographs. And then I went away into the rugby club and got changed and put on my rough clothes and went around the show doing my normal.
Yeah.
And then
that's what it's all about.
Back into the other clothes there to do the best in show. And Raymond Campbell is my assistant show manager, and Raymond, he really does go out of his way to help us in that. And I asked him, would he do show manager? Because obviously you can't do show manager if you're a judge. And so I said, would you mind put your name? He says, I'll put my name down as long as you do the work and help me. But that's the sort of club we are. We're a happy club. We get on with each other and we help each other. And everybody, benefits from being in the club. And we go out of our way. If somebody needs a judging appointment at an open show when they're starting off, or maybe the first set of green stars, we try and give back to them because they've given to us. And we do that for other people who are not even members of Newton Arts that came along and helped us set up the day before the shows. And we have people that do that, or they'll come and steward for us. If they're then going up the ranks and wanting a green star or progression, because they've helped us, we then give back to them as well. And if it was that two-way road all the time, it would be easier.
So Moving on, is there a judge or breeder worldwide or handler that you really admire?
It goes back to some of the ones there that we've seen there in the photographs of the top dogs that I already mentioned. You know, you've Gwen with the petits and the grunts.
Yeah.
I totally admire what she can do as a breeder and produce dog after dog after dog. And it's not just because she's a big name. Okay, it always helps when you're a big name and a great handler. But the quality of her dogs, I have never seen a bad dog. You know, and that's you know, so you have that. Nicholas Erickson with the Salukis is the same. I mean, the day I judged the Swedish winners and done it, and he wasn't handling every dog. He only handled a few dogs, but I think they nearly won every class from his breeding. You know, because you know, and you don't get that without having the quality. You mentioned Lars there, who was watching earlier with his standard wires. You know, in I'm not sure, is he Norway or Finland? I'm sorry, but anyways, Nordic countries. Fantastic producer of dachshunds, you know, and also then you have again in Sweden with their standard long, Jill and her mother Elizabeth. I did have their name wrote down there. Forgive me, their surnames went out of my head, but rodents. Sorry, Jill and Elizabeth rodents. Standard longs. Beautiful dogs, and again, Jill's went into Beagles as well now, and fantastic, but they're standalone dachshunds. You know, you can't go past these things. In Australia, Ruth Thompson with the Golden Retrievers. I done the Golden Retriever show out there when I was out 3 years ago. The Pink Ladies, especially, and
I've seen the photographs. Yes.
But people say, why did I not wear the pink suit? I said, well, I thought the pink underwear was enough, and I didn't want to go over the top. But anyway, but I say Ruth's dogs. Again, won many classes under me, and she didn't handle me. I hadn't a clue who this lady was. But again, fabulous Golden Retrievers. And she constantly produces, you know. So it's not the case of just somebody breeding one dog or two dogs, and that's their name made. It's when you're year after year and decade after decade at that top of your game, that has to count for something in my book. You know, and then at home, and I'm only going to mention you know, 2 or 3 people here, you know, as far as breeding and, you know, presenting and that sort of thing within breeds. I mean, we've got some of the world's best people in certain breeds. I mean, you've Dan Ritchie Stuart Ritchie, will tell me off, and Irish Setters.
Yeah.
When we have Irish Setters worldwide.
Absolutely.
I mean, again,
absolutely.
I've seen results from England breed shows with 2 different judges. And Diane's breeding has won every single class. How many people can say that? And she didn't handle them all or do whatever. It's dogs that she has bred. And such a talented breeder knows what she's doing. Jimmy Burns with their staffies.
Yes.
You know, again, producers, talented. And alongside from up the north here, Terry Woods. Terry's another one, making me known as well as Jimmy, but just fantastic staffies, you know, generation after generation. And like Anne Ingram, we don't need to say anything.
You don't.
Should it be boxers or poodles or whatever? Yeah. Such a brain, and going back with her mother and what, you know, I mean, I knew them when they lived.
They're legends.
Worldwide legends, not just, you know, just in Ireland or UK.
And I remember going back to Dan Ritchie many years ago, standing in Killarney in the middle of the ring judging Irish setters, and it was scorching hot, and I had about 80 Irish setters that day, which was in those days the average entry for Irish setters. And Dan came in with this bitch, an open bitch, and she just took my eye from the minute she walked in, and she got best of breed eventually, and I think she won the group that day. And Diane came over to me and said, "But you weren't even looking at her." I said, "Nah." Yes, I was. but I was trying to find the bitch that was going to beat her.
Yeah.
And her stuff is just so sublime.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion.
I swear she has some scientific thing that she clones them. She's got some whatever lab, some science lab. She clones dogs because
probably called Stuart.
Fabulous. She was actually supposed to come to our training today. She's been a couple of weeks ago and she was to come, and she rang me at 7 o'clock this morning to say she had failed last night and couldn't get out of bed this morning. But that's probably due more with her age. But Dan, I hope you're keeping okay if you're watching, and we'll see you back next week. But
when you see her, you send her my love. Now we're going to move on now, Eddie, because people are going to start to want to go to bed at this rate. Your funniest or most embarrassing moment as a judge or exhibitor?
Before we go to that, on that last topic, give me 2 seconds to say, on top of breeders in Ireland and worldwide, but breeders, and again, people who can present dogs, that have been outstanding for me to look at. And when there's 3 quick names, presenter handlers. One's Harry Quigg with the Kerry Blues.
Yes.
Genius.
Absolutely.
Sean Carroll. Sean has such a rapport with the dog when he takes it in.
Yeah.
Tiny dogs. He's not that tiny himself, so he's a fairly tall. But you think there's just an extension of him. A genius again.
That's what made Sean Carroll, and I'm interrupting, but that makes Sean Carroll one of the best handlers in the world, in my opinion, because like Jeff Corish, you don't see Sean Carroll, you see the dog.
Totally. He's in the background, but he's the one getting the best out of the dog.
Yeah.
And the last one is Sally Burns.
Oh.
A producer of videos, but more impressively to me,
genius.
It's an art. It really is, and I think you have to be born and blessed with it. You just can't. I don't think you can learn that skill. You have to have the eye, because like one clip of the scissors the wrong way, and it's a totally different look of the dog. But
that woman can do more with the scissors than most people can do in a lifetime. So
sorry, I just wanted to mention those. So
no, I think you're absolutely right. So come on, your funniest and most embarrassing moment. Come on. We're all waiting.
I have a couple. One was, and in Ireland, especially in Northern Ireland, about flags. I was judging in Norway, and I went to the table, met the stewards, and there was the Irish flag sitting on the table, and I have no problem with that. I'm an Irish Kennel Club judge, might live in the north. I never have anything to do with politics or religion, never have in my life, so I didn't care. That's my flag of my kennel club. And I got on with my judging. And about an hour into the judging, I went back to the table, and I was aware of this very official-looking man standing with a clipboard behind me. And honestly, it was going sideways on me. I thought, what's done? And when I finished that breed, he said, "Sir, could I have a word?" And of course, the sweat wet me, and I thought, if somebody's made a complaint, I've done something badly wrong here. Because it was too early for someone to come around to give your expenses. So I thought, something's wrong. He said, "Sir, we would like to make an apology to you, and I hope we haven't offended you." And I thought, what are you talking about? He says, "Well, somebody noticed that you actually live from Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom." I said, "Yeah, but what's the problem?" He said, "Well, but we've got the Irish flag there. I hope we haven't offended you in any way." I said, "No, but that's the flag of Ireland. It's the flag of my kennel club." "Well, I have no problem with it." "No, and you don't owe me any apology. There's no offence taken. Thank you very much." So anyway, so I got up and went and then judged the next class. And by the time I came back to the table, Colin, there was a Union Jack on the table as well.
No.
Along with the Irish flag. And I had a laugh, and the steward and the fits, and the steward said, "What's wrong? What's funny?" And I said, "I'll tell you later. I couldn't explain to you now. Flags in Northern Ireland, you couldn't have written the script. It was a one-off, brilliant. And what else was there? As an exhibitor, Dia, our current African dog, I took him to the World Show, and he was only just out of junior, and we showed him the first day under Dan Erickson, I think it was, and he made the last cut in the last sort of out of 40 odd dogs into the last sort of 6. delighted. That was the winner, the German winners. Then we went the next day to the World Show, and Louis Pinto from Portugal was judging. And again, he was in the intermediate class. Took him in 40-odd dogs, got down to the last 10, and then he was running on us all again. And Dave decided, and I don't know why you've seen him in the show ring with me at certain times, he gets up and he tries to hump me. Middle of the World Show, all these people around the ring, and they say Ridgeback's very popular at the World Show. All these people from all around the world, I'm watching this guy from Ireland getting humped by a Ridgeback in the middle of the ring. And I could not, and I took my jacket off to start with because he was trying to pull at the jacket. And then I ended up taking my waistcoat off because he was trying to pull it in. And as Louis said to me, he says, "You'll be down to your underwear soon, sir." He just wouldn't do it. And he honestly, the judge really wanted to give me, he really liked him. He wanted to give him every chance. But I ended up after 5 minutes, I just said, "Sir, I'm withdrawing." He says, "No, you're not. I want this dog." I says, "No, I'm withdrawing." And I walked out of the ring. Such an embarrassment at the World Show. Yeah. But we laugh about it now. He still tries it on, even now as a 5-year-old. If you take him in the ring, he'll still try it on. But in fact, at the Hound Show before lockdown, he won the group, and then he went in the best of show on the Tom Hare, and we got placed, and he's done his placings, and he was taking the photographs. And the next thing, here he's up on top of Tom, trying to hump Tom, and I just turned around and I said, "Sir," but I always said, "Well, sir, if anything comes of that meeting, I want a stud fee." So you have to laugh.
So if you hadn't started showing dogs, what sport would you got into?
Well, I was in athletics, and as I say, I was at a fairly high standard, not world beating, but national standard. I represented Northern Ireland many times. I was at 2 World Cross Country Championships. I was Northern Ireland champion over the cross country, over the track, 1500 steeplechase. I had met many famous people within athletics. As I said before, Eamon Cochran, John Tracy. Oh, we go on. It was very nice to be in that sort of company. So athletics was my life. Before I say my health changed and I had to just give it up. So yeah, definitely it was athletics.
Okay. And if you could be transported to another country, where would you like to go?
It's easy. It's out to South Africa.
Really? Oh, I've just lost you, Eddie.
Such an amazing country, amazing people. Of all levels of money and poverty and whatever. And it's humbling sometimes when you go there, and when we step off the plane, you don't have your hand in your pocket. You pay your own airfare to get there, and you don't have your hand in your pocket the whole time there, and you're treated 5-star by the people there. Mm. And that's one level of it. But then they take you away, and you go to the Kruger Park, and you do this, and you go and see other places, other towns and things. But in between, you're driving past these townships and things. And one thing about you go to the Kruger Park at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, because it's very the night time is very short there, but 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and you want to see the animals at their best at that time of the morning when they're coming out. So you're driving up the roads past these townships, and there's kids coming out from what I can see. It's breeze block type. That's the houses, breeze block type shanty towns or whatever, or townships. And you're walking past, and these kids are coming out with their best school uniforms on, spotless. And they're walking up the road to wherever to get the bus or even to walk to school, and they've got their wee school bag. And it's so humbling. And when you think of what we give our children here and how privileged they are, did you see that? So that opens it up. And I just love the country. I love the people, not just the dog people, all the people I've met and experienced out there. And a lovely place, not just the touristy things, but the culture as well. And it's something they say, and I was told beforehand by people that have been, when you go into certain places out in the countryside in South Africa, especially up into the Kruger and some of the places they take you to within the Kruger's as big as Ireland, probably bigger itself as a game.
Yes.
And they say when you stand there, you can nearly feel the heart of the earth, because that's where it is in Africa, and you can feel it through your feet, and it's true. And people think you look at you as if you got 2 heads and you're not wise, but go and experience it, and there is something there. They say about certain places in the world,
I
seriousness
have never
type of,
been, but apparently
yeah,
Rita said that the people are wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
You know, and
so
you come away so
your your
privileged, you know.
your
So
your guilty pleasure, Eddie.
growing up, it probably was too many, you know, buying motorbikes or buying cars. I never seemed to keep a car for more than 2 years because I always just like that was my wee for working so long and hard. That was my wee pleasure was a new car every couple of years or a motorbike or whatever. But I grew out of that. Or Gail just, in fact, the last motorbike I had, Gail sold it to get a new kitchen. So the Wesley McCrum, if you're watching, came on my birthday on a Sunday on my birthday and took my motorbike away. So shame on you.
Shame
But
on
nowadays,
him.
nowadays, simple pleasure. Nothing better than to sit. Should it be in company or just sit on my own in the quiet corner? Nice pint of Guinness and maybe a wee Jack Daniels and Coke or something, but certainly a wee glass of Guinness. So you have to get it in Ireland. It has to be somewhere in Ireland to have that pleasure correct because you can't get Guinness anywhere better than in Ireland. You know, so that's a simple pleasure, and that's all I want.
Ain't that the truth? Now, before I ask you the last question, I have a question from Susan White, which
You should ban her. Just ban Susan White.
no, never. Do you still enjoy playing that card game?
You know,
we're not talking strip poker here.
I can understand when women, especially slightly older women, when they laugh too much or whatever, they have a certain leakage. And forgive me because I had a certain leakage that night because the laughing that we done that night when we were playing that game. Honestly, the tears were coming out of me. Not just tears. And
please tell me this was not strip poker.
Oh no! There wouldn't have been tears then. No. It was some stupid game that they had and Pearl had, and I hadn't a clue how to start. But see, at the end of the night, but of course with a few wee medicinal sort of drinks, fantastic, and never be forgot. You know, to me, I sort of say to see when you go away, dog shows in general should be yes the competition, but most shows should be about the social side, enjoying it, have fun, and meeting people. That to me is more important, especially nowadays. Yes, it's nice to go in and win, but that's important. But when you go in the circuit and you go with other people that you maybe aren't in their company all the time, and you can come away with memories like that, brilliant. And I don't know why Susan remember. I don't know whether it was Sonia or Pearl, but they decided to use the washing machine, or sorry, the dishwasher, and instead of putting the tablets in, they put fairy liquid or something in it, and it was like a foam party when they opened the door. The whole kitchen was knee deep in foam. So lots of laughs, lots of great memories.
Brilliant. Eddie, if you could write your epitaph, what's it going to be?
I think a simple one,
what? Gail was the boss.
All I can say is I didn't always get it right, but at least I tried.
Fair play. Fair play.
That's about all I can say, And if you wanted another slight one there that Gail would maybe have on my headstone, here he lies, finally stopped talking.
Eddie, thank you very much for this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, pleasure's all mine. Thank you for asking me.
I'm with Gail. It's been the longest interview I've had so far.
Well, you can blame Susan White for that, for so many questions.
She only had two.
Too many.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My regards to everybody up there.
Thank you.
Particularly to Gail. Gail, I know you're in the background there, so...
no, she's in the kitchen. She's in the kitchen. She's never usually in the kitchen. She's in the kitchen watching, yeah. I have to tell you, Colin, before you go, she's filtering this, and actually she's sitting in the kitchen, if need be, to pull the plug out of the computer to kill the feed. So I think I've got away with it okay.
You've been very interesting, very informative. It's been my pleasure. And hopefully we will see each other soonish. And stay safe, the pair of you. My guest next week will be David Alcorn, gun dog handler, Gordon Settler exhibitor. Yeah, he's a good handler. I think he'd be somebody very interesting to talk to. Join me next week, 7 p.m. live, Facebook and YouTube. In the meantime, Eddie, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Love to read it.
Pleasure to see you, and love to Gail. Yeah. And thank you everybody for watching.